Hello and welcome to the Culture Swally, a podcast dedicated to Scottish news and pop culture. It is our first proper episode of 2025. My name is Nicky and I'm joined, as always, by the man who I've spent many a night with, drinking half and halves and talking about our penises. It's Gregg. How are you today, buddy?
Very well. Because I feel like the new year, it's the 11th of January today, we're recording on.
Yeah.
It seems like a really, really, really long time ago, like New Year's Eve, so it does.
When's the cut-off for wishing someone a happy new year? It's past now, surely. It's a week, isn't it?
I think it's probably past. I mean, if it's somebody that you know, that you just haven't spoken to in all that time, I think it's all right to say, oh, listen, by the way, belated happy new year. If you're meeting somebody for the first time...
it's a bit off then, yeah. Well, happy new year to all of our listeners. Thank you for sticking with us, and I hope you enjoyed 2024 and look forward to bringing you lots of good stuff in 2025. Indeed. How was your new year? Did you do anything exciting?
No, not really. We sort of stayed in. My daughter's boyfriend was with us, the ever-present boyfriend. So we had a couple of drinks. We went up on the roof, managed to see some like a drone show from our house roof in Dubai, and that was it. That was it, really. Yeah, just sort of, quite a lot's happened in 11 days. So it's like, I feel like it was really a long time ago. It's just the sort of trials and tribulations of having two teenage daughters. You know what I mean?
And a boyfriend.
One with a boyfriend. Honestly, like, living in my house, right? Let me paint a picture for you and our listeners. a figurative picture, right? So my wife and I are formerly plucky British Tommies that are elbowing our way across no man's land during the First World War in the Somme, in the pitch black. When we enlisted, it seemed like a good idea, right? When we signed up. Now we're lying in the mud, up to our nose in fucking mud and blood, wondering how we're still alive, elbowing our way across towards the enemy in the dark. Like, one wrong move, we'll see us cut to pieces by machine gun fire. And that is like breakfast time in our house. That's like just asking an innocuous question like, what you got on at school today? Or do you want some breakfast? Or did you sleep all right? Can see you absolutely eviscerated by enemy fire for nothing. So it's been a good start to the year.
Excellent. Just reminding me, I've got a cracking story to tell you, but I'll tell you off air because it's definitely not for public consumption. Okay. I'll tell you that. Oh, wow. Well, that sounds like you've had a hell of a time then for the first 11 years, but it'll get better.
The first 11 days, yeah, it's fine. I've got a few things coming up this year. I'm going to be flying on a private plane for the first time in my life.
Very nice.
in a couple of weeks. My youngest daughter did remind me that private planes are the ones that crash the most. So,
for fuck's sake.
Just to make sure I look forward to that. And I've got another trip to New York coming up in March. So a few things going on, all work related, but living quietly for the first half of the year to try and refill the Gregg coffers that were depleted over our trip to Scotland for Christmas and Christmas presents and Airbnbs and flights and trains and planes and automobiles. So yeah, looking forward to just digging right in and having a good natter about Scottish news and pop culture.
And Ludies later on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a perfect tonic to get over the start of the year. Yeah, fantastic.
Sure is.
Wonderful.
Sure is. And how was your Christmas and New Year? You were obviously here in Dubai. Our ships passed very briefly the day before I went to Scotland.
We got to catch up very quickly. It was good. You know what I'm like? I hardly left the house. I had a really good time. Good time. Just staying in with my sister and nieces and brother-in-law. It was brilliant to catch up. Really, really had a wonderful time because I didn't leave the house very often. I think it was the last night we went out for dinner, and that was the first time that I was there, and I was like, yeah, this is why I don't go out. I hate this place so much.
Where did you go for dinner?
It was somewhere on the Palm. So it was, I don't know, that walkway bit with all the pink neon signs and stuff. It was,
on the beach
restaurant there.
Yeah. West Beach, I think it's called.
That's it, West Beach. Yeah. And that was like, this has ruined my holiday. But never mind. But other than that, it was lovely because I didn't really leave the house that much. But yeah, had a wonderful time. So no, it was all good. Came back from New Year and just had a quiet evening. Stayed in, with my friend and watched the fireworks and stuff, and had a nice evening. Introduced her to some Scottish music, so there was a lot of Proclaimers and
Deacon
Blue, Simple Minds,
Belle and Sebastian.
No, we went with, because she asked like, what would you be listening to New Year's Eve? And I don't think, as much as Belle and Sebastian are one of my favourite bands of all time, they're not really a New Year's Eve kind of band, are they?
No, I guess not. No. Yeah.
You're not going to see them. You want to listen to Dougie MacLean, Caledonia was put on.
Right.
She said that was one of the most beautiful songs she'd ever heard.
Well.
Okay. So yeah, still got it, old Dougie.
Certainly does. Good for Dougie.
And then we had to watch the Tennant's advert, but that didn't go down quite as well because obviously I think you have to be Scottish to understand that.
Which Tennant's advert? Which one?
The one with Caledonia, the one, of course, where the guy's in the London bank and throws his pass down. But that's the Frankie Miller cover, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Frankie Miller version, yeah.
Yeah, but still. But I think you have to probably be Scottish to understand that advert, really, and how much it means. But yeah, she said it was beautiful, and like to, for a country to be so proud and to swell your heart, and then stuck on a bit of the hootenanny, but then it was
too late, isn't it?
Knackered by then.
Yes,
fuck. So never mind. Okay, well, shall we have a look at what has been happening in Scotland in the first 11 days of 2025?
Cue the jingle.
Hello, this is the Outer Hebrides Broadcasting Corporation, and here is what's been going on in the news.
Okay, Gregg, what have you seen to kick us off for our first story of 2025?
Well, there was a story that I was going to do that I'm not going to do anymore, but it was about obviously one of the big.
It's a good start.
One of the big sort of pieces of I suppose British sporting news in 2025 already was the young darts champion Luke Littler. There was a story in the Daily Record about a couple of kids who beat Littler when he was a bit younger in a sort of Scotland v England team game. But this story is not all that funny, but it did remind me of we mentioned one of Scotland's greatest ever athletes just before we started recording, Jockey Wilson earlier on, champion darts player. And I was reading, there's a podcast called The Upshot. I think I sent you their Twitter thread on this sort of golden age of darts, but they obviously mentioned they mention Jockey Wilson, obviously, and apparently he never brushed his teeth because his granny told him that the English poisoned the water. Right?
I've heard this. Yes, I remember hearing this before.
So once he became quite famous, like when ITV had the darts and the darts became like huge in the sort of 70s and 80s, ITV bought him a pair of false teeth, which he kept at night. He kept them in a glass of Fanta by his bed. I can only assume so they taste nice when they popped them in. When they popped them in the morning.
I have heard that story before. It's fucking brilliant. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, a glass of Fanta. He must have had like neon teeth.
He must have like transparent teeth. Anyway, so well done to Luke Littler. But I think these young Scottish boys have got their eye on you for your championship in the future. But I'll start my first story, proper story. This comes from Glasgow Live on the 9th of January this year. And it's very reminiscent of some of our earliest stories on the Swally. I mean, we're going into our 5th year of the Culture Swally this year, and this one is very, very, very evocative of some of our first stories. So the headline reads, Gregg superfan who eats 4 sausage rolls at once.
Oh my God.
Gets a £200 sausage roll tattoo. This is Matthew McCarroll, a Gregg superfan who has forked out £1,600 on sausage rolls, has got himself a tattoo of the savoury pastry on his arm. Matthew McCarroll has spent the last 7 years visiting the bakery giant after work on a Friday and scoffing 4 sausage rolls in one go before heading home for a nap. The council groundsman, who concedes that he's not the best eater in the world, has been chomping on the pastry since he was a kid, describing the chain sausage rolls as his favourite food. In tribute, the 31-year-old went under the needle to get a 6-inch inking of the sausage roll, peeping out of the branded packaging with a halo-like orange glow around it on his right arm. Matthew quipped that he now looks like an advertising board for Gregg's, and he hoped the chain might acknowledge his body art after scoffing 1,456 of the snacks during his after-work visits. He had hoped he might get something out of the £200 tattoo, like a t-shirt or something from the brand. I mean, it's got to be the shittest tattoo I've ever seen in my life. The sausage roll fan originally had a £200 tattoo done in July by Amber Naomi at Celestial Tattoo in Hamilton, South Lanarkshire, and he had it touched up on December the 14th. Matthew from Blantyre, South Lanarkshire, said, Amber had done McDonald's designs, and I said, if you design one of these as a Gregg's, I'll get it. I've had Gregg's sausage rolls since I was a Wayne. I'm not the best eater in the world, but I knew I liked sausage rolls, so it was something I would fall back on as I got older. My routine on a Friday after work is I go straight to Gregg's, then I go for a nap. It's brilliant. It started 7 years ago. My usual order is 4 sausage rolls. I eat them in one go after my shift. Sausage rolls are just one of my favourite foods. I know I've got a tattoo in my arm, but I've never thought about it this deeply. They're just nice and I like the taste of them. Amber did a design that I liked. The orange around it looked like a halo, and I got it. After going under the needle for 3 hours when it was originally done, Matthew had it touched up to make the vibrant colours pop. He said, it went fine. Amber's good at her job. We were joking that I look like an advertising board. The dream is, if Gregg see it, it would be great to get something that acknowledges that I've got it. Maybe a t-shirt. Surely it acknowledges itself that he's got it, because it's on his arm. So I'm going to just snap a picture of this and send it over to you, because I don't know how this took 3 hours. I really don't. The one I've got in my left arm, which has a bit of detail in it, like a lot more detail, I would say, than this thing that I'm about to share with you. Did not take 3 hours. I sent it over.
Fascinating podcasting here. Let me have a look at this. Oh my god, that's fucking. Oh my god. You know what though? It's not. I mean, yes, the orange glow is bad. As a kind of cartoony tattoo, it would have looked a lot better if it was just like all one colour, if it had been like black or something. But I guess you have to have the colour for the sausage roll. Yeah, it does look shit, actually, now I think about it.
It should have taken 3 hours to do that. Should it?
No. And maybe she stopped for a sausage roll in between.
Maybe she did.
To pop out and get one. Yeah. Wow, that is a life choice. And he has obviously thought, I'm going to get something out of this. I bet he's tweeted Gregg's and asked for something, and they've just ignored him. I bet he goes into Gregg's with his sleeve rolled up now, and the assistants behind the counter could not give less of a fuck that it's a Friday afternoon. It's the last of the sausage rolls. They probably saved 4 for him, give him the shite ones, and they couldn't care less. 4 sausage rolls in one sitting, though. That's no wonder many. He has to go for a fucking sleep afterwards.
It's too many, right? But the thing is, like, if you because Gregg's don't keep things hot, you know. So
no.
So if you're going in there late in the afternoon, I imagine that's when things start to slow down a little bit for Gregg's. So those sausage rolls must be fucking stone cold, surely.
I can't think of a nice way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. I mean, judging by the photo, obviously you can only see his upper arm and a little bit of his torso. He doesn't look like a fat bastard.
He's not.
But, that's incredible then. 4 sausage rolls, go for a sleep. That's quite a strange tradition, or you finish your work week, right,
something
time for the rolls and a wee nap, get up in time for Friday night. I don't know what's on. I don't know what's on. Big Brother, but that's not on anymore. I've no idea what's on a Friday night in the UK. The Traitors at the moment, Traitors at the moment, yeah.
Traitors.
I mean, been enjoying that.
I mean, it once was that after work on a Friday, you would look forward to a couple of pints.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Not four sausage rolls.
Straight to the pub, a few beers, and then you'd be home, and then either you go out or you just sit and watch, because Friday night telly was always good. Like, you know, on Channel 4 in particular, had a good comedy run, you know, Friends, if you were into that, but in Frasier, and then latterly stuff like Peep Show and Pharaoh Ted and Eurotrash, The Word, yes. Although I wasn't going to the pub before I was watching The Word, unfortunately. I was too young for that.
The Girly Show.
But, The Girly Show, yes. No alcohol, maybe a wee hand shandy to The Girly Show, but no alcohol was consumed before then.
A wee top deck to The Girly Show.
Well, fair play to him if he's, you know, if he's happy with it and he enjoys his tattoo. But it's a brave choice to have on your arm. But hey, it's something that he obviously adores and he loves, and he just wants to show how proud he is of Gregg's. But yeah, I would never get a brand tattooed on me or anything like that. No. That's just asking for trouble.
No, indeed. Anyway, that was my first story of the year, of a retro style Culture Swally story. What's your first story this year?
I'm going to shock you, Gregg. I'm going to go for a royal story for my first story of the year. And it is about the possible future king, Prince William. This is from the Scottish Sun today, and the headline reads, Wicked Willie. Prince William was banned from his local video shop whilst at uni for not paying his fines, it has been claimed. The royal undergraduate's favourite movie was said to be saucy comedy Boat Trip, which has scantily clad Swedish actress Victoria Silverstedt riding an outsized banana on the front cover. A former video shop assistant said that the heir to the throne enjoyed multiple viewings of the 2002 DVD, which tells of two friends who accidentally end up on a gay cruise. At the time, William, now a 42-year-old father of three, I love the way they just casually, it's not like, you know, who's about to be the king, but no, William, now a 42-year-old father of three, was studying at the University of St Andrews in Fife, along with his future wife, Kate Middleton. The assistant, named only as Zoe, claimed that the young geography student was often seen browsing the aisles, but was eventually banned for returning DVDs late. She said, "We used to serve Prince William quite regularly in the video shop at St Andrews before everything went digital. His DVDs were always late, and his bodyguards would never want to pay the fines. We would end up, because it was just part of it, we had to ban Prince William until he paid up, which he always did in the end. He's very nice." She revealed that his favourite film was Boat Trip, which stars former Playboy centerfold Victoria as a bikini model called Inga. Zoe said that the movie, which also stars Cuba Gooding Jr., was terrible, adding, "It's got a very scantily clad lady in a blue bikini riding a banana." He rented that a couple of times at least. It is unclear whether Kate also watched the film, as the couple lived together at the Scottish University from 2001. The future king has previously said that he's also a fan of the Lord of the Rings films. So yeah, Boat Trip. I remember Boat Trip coming out.
Have you seen who else is in it? Cuba Gooding Jr., Shaft himself, Richard Roundtree, Roger Moore.
Yes, I mean, Roger Moore has surely been employed for his name for Boat Trip, without a doubt. And we're setting it's a sexy boat party. Let's have Shaft in it as well. Now, the cover, it doesn't scream to me gay cruise, but maybe... Don't know. I remember Boat Trip coming out, actually, because I worked at Blockbuster at the time. And it reminded me of time that I worked at Blockbuster. And I was doing my master's, so I did sometimes do like the day shift. It would just be me in the shop, and I would stick on whatever I wanted. You're supposed to play the video, you know, that was on a loop. But after you'd heard that about 30 times, like, it would do your tits in. So was that like the
kind of preview video?
Yeah, so it was like 30 minutes long. So if you're doing an 8-hour shift, you heard it 16 times. And over the course of a week, I still can't watch Men in Black 2 because that trailer just repeated so often in my fucking head. And it was great because you would always get these weird... So there was one guy in particular I remember coming in one day and he was just milling round the shop. Must have been in his like late 30s, early 40s. And he's picking up DVDs and looking at stuff. And then he finally obviously worked up the bottle and he comes up to me and he goes, "Got any porn?" I was like, no, mate. I was like, we're a family video shop. Like, you know, it's Blockbuster. We don't have any porn. I was like, look, we've got this in recently. And there was a trend at that time. There would be like erotic films.
Yeah.
And they all seem to be based around like Lord of the Rings or something like that. Like it was like a scantily clad elf on the front. And he's like, "Have you seen it?" And I'm like, "No, but I was like, I can tell you there's no, like, it won't even be softcore. Like, you might see some boobs, but that's all you're going to see." Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, I was looking for something a bit harder." And I'm like, "No, not in Blockbuster, mate. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, there's a shop on George Street, I think, so it might help. But no, definitely not here." And he's like, "Oh, okay, all right, well, thanks anyway." And then I think he rented Tigerland or something and then went on his merry way. Right. But yeah, it just always made me laugh. Just, got any porn? But yeah, I don't know if Prince William asked for porn, but he rented Boat Trip multiple times. So I guess that was as close as he got.
Well, there was a load of films like that, wasn't there? There was like Boat Trip, there was Road Trip. They all sort of spun off the American Pie genre of like sexed up teens trying to get their Nat King.
They were great. I loved American Pie and I liked Road Trip as well. I never watched Boat Trip because by that point I'm like, this just looks fucking terrible. Not even Shaft can save this.
Well, I've never really liked Cuba Gooding Jr. as an actor. Like, I remember like, the first thing I saw him in was probably Boys in the Hood. And like, I didn't really root for him in Boys in the Hood. You know what I mean?
No.
I didn't really like him very much. And then obviously I think his big thing, the thing that sort of set his wave going for a while was Jerry Maguire, wasn't it? And then now apparently he's been cancelled for being inappropriate. Maybe his experience on Boat Trip perhaps has turned him into a monster.
Do you think Roger Moore complained about him on the set? Or Roger Moore showed him some tips of what to do that got him cancelled,
This is what you could get away with in the 70s and the 60s.
Anyway, so yeah, that's my first story. Prince William used to be a dirty bastard when he was. He probably still is, to be fair. But we don't know. That's allegedly. Don't know. But it's Zoe from that used to work in the shop. So blame her, not us. Anyway, did you have a film that you would rent over and over again?
Not really. I would tell you, if it was a film that I wanted, that I knew I'd watch more than once, I would probably just buy it. So it would seem like sort of false economy to rent the same film multiple times if it was available to buy. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, in the early 2000s, around about then, I think probably Training Day was one that I watched quite a lot, the Denzel Washington one. Fight Club probably got watched quite a lot back then, even though it's a couple of years old by then. Snatch was another one that got watched probably more than it probably deserved to be. Well, but, I mean, I don't know, because like films would sort of be in for a while, wouldn't they? And we'd like the three of us would be into them, we'd talk about them all the time and stuff, and then one of us would find something else and we'd move on quite quickly. Yeah, no, same as you. I think I didn't. I was the same. I'd rather buy something. If I rented it and I really liked it, then I would buy it. Yeah. I never did. And then around about 2001, when Willie was renting Boat Trip, that was around about the time that I bought a DVD burner. So just rented stuff once and never had to rent it again because I had my own copy on a lovely. No, I know, but I mean, pirated disc. You gave me a few before you moved to Dubai. I think you gave me Catch Me If You Can. That came from you. There was another few as well, but I can't remember. I remember that one specifically because I don't think I'd seen it. I remember my wife and I waking up hungover one Sunday morning, and rather than get out of bed, we just stuck that on and had a bit of breakfast in bed and watched Catch Me If You Can. Then went for a nap. That was obviously before we had children. I'm wondering. Well, you know, so I'm imagining that William probably has a DVD collection. He doesn't strike me as the sort of person who's gone completely digital yet, you know? Yeah. So I wonder Yeah, I'm just wondering what other body sex comedies he might have in his private stash for when Kate's in the hospital or away on Prince of Wales business, you know.
I mean, he's a similar age to us, so I imagine I remember buying on video. Oh fuck, what was it? She had 2 films. It was can't even. It was Pamela Anderson. It was Snapdragon.
Barbed Wire.
No, it was before Barbed Wire. There was Snapdragon. I'll always remember that one. And there was another one that did the rounds at our school because, let's just say she got undressed in it. It's going to annoy me. I'm going to have to look that up now. It was like a crime thriller. It was like Basic Instinct, like before Basic Instinct. Like it was a shit film, but it was very popular because, because she got undressed in it. Pamela Anderson career. Where's her filmography? Snapdragon.
She's a bit of a philanthropist now, isn't she?
She is, yeah. Maybe it was just Snapdragon. Where's the cover for it? Is it? Yeah, I think it was Snapdragon. Yeah, because then after that, the next one's is like Barbed Wire. Yeah, it must have been Snapdragon. I did remember that.
I remember her Playboy video getting passed around when I was at college, and it was basically just little sort of sketches of Pamela Anderson taking her clothes off and, you know, sort of seducing men, although there's no sex in it, or no real sex, not even 9% sex, really. It was just like, it was all the lead up. But I remember enjoying it a lot when I was like 17, 18.
Yeah, I can imagine you did. Yeah.
So I reckon that William's got. Well, he's obviously got like the director's cut, like steelbook of Boat Trip on Blu-ray.
He's got the steelbook of Boat Trip.
Yeah. Maybe Road Trip, American Pie 1, 2, 3, and the spin-offs, and then that reunion one they did a few years ago that I actually quite enjoyed. That when they were all
it was good.
It was pretty good. He's probably got all the Carry On films. He probably nicked them out of his Uncle Andrew's room before he got evicted from the palace.
Do you think he goes back to like the classics, like Porky's?
Porky's, maybe. It's maybe a bit too sophisticated for him.
Porky's is too sophisticated for fucking Prince William, do you think?
Yeah. Porky's 1 and 2. Emmanuel, all the Emmanuel films, including Carry On Emmanuel.
Loves a sex romp, does Prince William. Yeah.
Loves a sex romp.
But just to be clear, I want to reiterate, we have no idea if Kate watched. I don't know why I went all Yorkshire there. No idea. We've no idea if Kate watched Boat Trip, so we can't scandalise her with that.
Because we like Kate, but we're not that keen on him.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Anyway, Gregg, what is your second story this week?
So my second story is much more wholesome than your disgusting Boat Trip story. It comes from Edinburgh.
Wait till my next story.
It comes from Edinburgh Live on the 7th of January. And it's about Olympic skateboarding legend Andy Macdonald, who I'm sure you're familiar with. He was very impressed by his visit to West Lothian skate park. Andy Macdonald, who represented Team GB at the Paris Olympics at the age of 51, journeyed to Scotland with Skateboard GB. His Scottish retreat was documented for YouTube, and he seemed quite taken by the skate park, but not so keen on his iron brew breakfast. You're not supposed to drink it. You're supposed to have iron brew at breakfast time. That's probably why.
No.
Andy, who is the oldest Olympic skateboarder in history, has roots in Scotland with his family hailing from Dumfries. He said his visit to Livingston was a bucket list destination. I mean, there can't be many people. No offence to the good people at Livingston, but there can't be many people who have Livy on their bucket list. In the YouTube clip, Andy starts off, "We're in Scotland, we're at Livy, it's 2 degrees, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I've never been to Livy. We're about to check it out. This place is legendary. I told Tony Hawk I was coming to Scotland, and he was like, you've got to buy me this scotch, and you've got to go skate at Livy." Didn't know Tony Hawk had been there. In the video, Andy arrives and he's impressed by the park, although he's wary of the icy conditions. He continues, "My granddad is from Dumfries. This is my first trip to Scotland. I called my dad and asked about any relatives. He said, my granddad is probably buried at Dumfries. How does he not know where his dad's buried? For fuck's sake, that's shocking. To get in touch with my heritage, I thought I'd have a Scottish breakfast. He then pulls out shortbread and iron brew, neither of which are breakfast items, to enjoy before skating. He adds, I've never had anything like it. That aftertaste is a little rough. I wouldn't describe it as the best thing I've ever tasted, but I'm sure you get used to it. You have to go out in the lash, Andy. You have to go out in the lash and drink at least 10 pints of Tennant's, have a fish supper on your way home, and then wake up in the morning and tell us what iron brew tastes like then, because after it tastes like absolute nectar. Andy says he has seen the Livingston spot many times in clips, but he's very happy to have finally skated the park himself. He said, I've only known it through video footage, but now I'm here. You can never really understand it until you're there in real life. That's certainly the case here. This feels like a bucket list destination. So there we go. Oldest Olympic skater in history, Andy Macdonald, visiting Livingston. A bucket list destination, apparently. Maybe he's talking about the skate park. Maybe that skate park is a bucket list place to skate if you're a skating enthusiast like him.
Yeah, Livingston is a bucket list destination. It's a bit bizarre. But I guess if your family are from there and you think your heritage is there, then of course it will be.
Yeah, exactly. So that's old Andy. I mean, I remember... when I was younger, although I was never very good at it, I was quite enthusiastic about skateboarding. And when I say not very good at it, I mean really not very good at it. But I used to buy the magazines and stuff, and I can remember Andy Macdonald and like the Bone, and not that he skated for them, but the Bones Brigade and all that back in the sort of very, very late 80s and early 90s. Magazines like Rad and Skateboard, and if I had enough money, Thrasher. And I really just like looking at the pictures of these guys like absolutely like defying gravity on their boards. What are you laughing at? Is this the Thrasher?
They just because they sound like jazz mag names. Like, how do you get
skateboard?
Well, no, but like Rad and Thrasher. Like, come on, that's better names than Escort and Fiesta, surely.
I used to like Rad because you used to quite often get free stickers. They could stick on your skateboard with Rad. But yeah, I was never really very good at skateboarding. I know that you like some of the, and continue to like some of the fashions around the culture and stuff, but did you ever skate yourself?
I did when I was very younger and didn't again. And then randomly, when I moved to Dubai, I took up snowboarding, and I used to snowboard most weeks. Went away on a few snowboarding trips as well. I still have, in fact, behind me in the corner, I have 2 snowboards,
right,
which haven't touched snow in years. I keep meaning to do that again. In early lockdown 2020, I bought a skateboard.
That's right. So you did.
Used it about 3 times down in the car park of the building I lived, and just never picked it up again. I think I was just too scared that I would end up breaking something, and obviously it takes a long time to heal when you get to our age, so it's the fear of that. I mean, of course, we are big skateboarding enthusiasts because, of course, we have a sponsor, Doric Skateboards.
Absolutely.
So we need to promote them. But yeah, I keep meaning, I still have the skateboard, and I bought a helmet and pads and stuff, and I keep meaning to every time to try and pick it up again. And I don't know, Gregg, I'll be 44 next month. I'm too old for it now, surely. I don't know.
Look at Andy Macdonald and Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk must be in his late 50s by now, surely, and he's still... And Steve Caballero as well.
That's one thing. It's weird, the things that you will always remember and you'll never forget. And I remember being out... I went to Riley's one night.
Riley's.
And I ended up... Yeah, right? And I ended up back in a flat with the girl I was seeing at the time, and her flatmate worked in Riley's, and a mutual acquaintance of ours was seeing her flatmate.
Right.
It was Dave Pitty.
Right.
And the 4 of us ended up back at their flat. They were students, so they were in theirs. And we were watching ITV at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they were showing, I can't remember what games it was, but literally we watched, maybe it was the X Games, but it was the event that Tony Hawk did, the 180 for the first time.
Right.
And we sat watching it and like, holy fuck. Like, and it's funny, the things that just never forget. And I will always remember sitting in their kitchen on a portable TV watching Tony Hawk do this. Bizarre.
That is cool. I mean, I when we lived in Barrow and Furness, my neighbour, for his birthday, got a skateboard, and it was something that I'd never considered. He got a Turbo 2, which was like a sort of British like discount. There was no kind of concave in it or anything. It was completely flatboard. And so for my birthday, I asked for a skateboard and I got one. And mine, my board was called a Jack the Ripper. And it had a big Union Jack on the belly of it.
So brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know why, but with like sort of the words Jack the Ripper sort of down the middle of it, and it did have a bit of a curve in it, and I mean, we would literally, because we lived next to like next to a cul-de-sac which was in a hill, so we would sort of skate down the hill, and we would try and we could do like little ollies and stuff like that, and like very, 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 very basic stuff. But I remember they built in Barrow in the public park, they built a half pipe, and we went down there one day, and we were the only ones there, thankfully. And we so we sort of started on the flat bit and kind of tried to get a little bit up and down, and then I thought I'm going to try and drop in, and I didn't hurt myself, but maybe a little bit, maybe a couple of bruises. But it was a humiliation because the board went one way and my body went straight down, and it was a humiliation. I was so glad it was just me and my neighbour there. But I mean, not that my neighbour ever let me forget it, but if there had been like a group of like cool skater guys there, then that would have been too much to bear.
So in that instance, heaven wasn't a half pipe.
Heaven certainly wasn't. But we used to go down, I mean, we would go down and watch the guys that were good skate. You know what I mean? That was quite good. You'd go down and sort of sit and watch them and things. And it just sort of, the more I watched them do it, the more I was convinced that I would never be able to do that.
Then what would you do then? Just go home and pour yourself over the pages of Thrasher?
Yeah, exactly. Go home and cut out images of the Deathbox team doing hand plants and 720s and stuff like that, and my Vision Streetwear t-shirt that was too small for me after like about 6 months.
I mean, hand plants and 720s does also sound like something that should be in a porn mag, right? I'm sure I've seen those categories online.
A fakie. Anyway.
That's brilliant. I'm glad he made it to Livy, though, and was able to make the pilgrimage. That's lovely to hear in terms of, getting in touch with his roots and going back to where he, thinks is a spiritual home. I love hearing stuff like that. That's really nice.
Yeah. Anyway, enough skateboarding chat. What's your next story this week?
My next story is also another celebrity story, and it is from the Daily Record this week. I'm a celeb star stopped at Scott's airport after security mistake black pudding for a bomb. I'm a Celebrity Star. Now, I never watched I'm a Celebrity, but I know you did. We'll come on to that, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Reverend Richard Coles, who, of course, is from the Communards, was stopped at a Scots Island airport after security staff mistook his black pudding for a bomb. The star had been visiting the Outer Hebrides and headed out to Stornoway on January the 3rd with plans to attend a local church. But the 62-year-old landed himself in hot water when a security scanner flagged his souvenir black pudding as a potential explosive. And there's a picture of Richard with his black pudding, and it is a walloper. You can insert your own joke there. Sharing details of the mix-up, he wrote on social media, "Want to trigger an emergency response going through Lewis security? Simply purchase some black pudding from the Isle of Stornoway," which looks to the scanner like Semtex, but tastes much nicer. On his New Year trip to Scotland, he revealed he sampled some of the renowned cuisine from the Isle of Lewis has to offer and fell in love with the Stornoway black pudding. He also visited the historic church of Team Paul Mula at the most northerly point of the island. A Highlands and Island Airports Limited spokesman said, "We were pleased to welcome the Reverend Richard Coles to Stornoway Airport. It's great to see he was such a huge fan of one of the region's delicacies. We hope to see him back to the Isle of Lewis soon." The priest was an unlikely entrant on I'm a Celebrity Gang here. He built up a cult following. Is that the best thing to say about a priest? Amongst viewers, despite not walking away with the crown of thorns, the priest came away with an unlikely friendship with loose women star Grace G.K. Barry. Never heard of her, but you're about to tell me all about her. Their dynamic had viewers in hysterics a lot of the time, and they called for them to have their own show on the outside world. At the end of last year, delighted fans saw G.K. and Richard reunite on screen when he appeared on Loose Women to discuss his time on the programme. Someone begged, "You and Rev need to go on Gogglebox." One fan wrote, Grace gave us some of the best conversations with Richard. I need a celeb Gogglebox episode with the two of them, as I'm going to miss them. So that is Richard Coles trying to smuggle Semtex, Black Pudding out of the island. I obviously I'm aware of Richard Coles because of the Communards. I'm aware of him because of TV stuff he's done. I haven't really seen anything. You watched I'm a Celeb. Was he good value, good entertainment?
He was good. You know, I didn't know anything about him other than the fact that I knew that he had played with the Communards, obviously, but I didn't know anything about his career as a reverend, and he seems like really sound. Gotta be honest, like he seems like a really, really nice fella. I think a few of the people in there weren't sure at first because obviously he's a reverend, you know, and but he's very, very down to earth. And that G.K. Barry, I'd never heard of her before watching I'm a Celebrity, but apparently she built quite a big career as a podcaster first, and that has opened up into like a kind of wider career on the TV and stuff. I found her very funny, I got to be honest. And she had a conversation with him because he's homosexual, and they're both homosexual. And she had a conversation with him about scissoring. And Jesus. Okay. And he, you know, as a homosexual man and man of the cloth, he had never heard of scissoring. So I
find that hard to believe.
Well, he certainly said he hadn't heard of it, and you know, I had no reason not to believe him. But that led to her having to describe it to him in whatever detail she could get away with for an ITV 9:00 at night show. And a couple of episodes later, like when they were whittling down the celebrities that were still left in the camp, the ones that were left were treated to a surprise visit by like relatives, you know, partners, whatever. And G.K. Barry's mum turned up. G.K. Barry's like, oh, she's really happy to see her mum. And then she remembers that she's been talking about scissoring to Richard Coles on the TV, and her mother will have watched it. But her mum seems quite cool as well. So no, I mean, would I tune in every year for I'm a Celebrity? I think it would rest heavily on who the celebrities were. I think this year they had quite a good bunch. You know, they had your man from McFly who ended up winning it. They had actually, obviously the two we just mentioned, but Barry McGuigan, who's just cool as fuck. Who else? Can't remember who else was in there. Like, a few other people that I didn't know that I came to like. Jane Moore, the journalist, she was quite good as well. The only one that I didn't like was that young Irish DJ off Radio 1. What a fucking pain in the arse he was.
Oh yeah, I can't remember his name now, but I know who you mean. He was a panelist on because although I don't watch I'm a Celeb, I was a Big Brother obsessive. He was often on the spin-off show. I know who you mean. But yeah,
he's a pain.
He's quite good value on that.
Is he?
Yeah.
Talisa from N-Dubs was on there. She was quite good as well. I know what, my daughter liked it, so her and I made a point of watching it.
In fact, I listened to a podcast just yesterday. I listened to the football podcast, the rest is football, or this is football with it's the one, or the overlap. It's the one with Gary Neville and Roy Keane and and stuff. Yeah. And they had Colleen Rooney on as a guest.
She was on there.
Episode. So she was speaking about her time in the jungle and stuff, and the experience of it and stuff. So I thought that was, and it was quite interesting because Jill Scott also presents, and she won it a few years ago. And Ian Wright's been in the jungle and stuff, and so they were asking, and it was good. And they asked like, Roy, would you ever do it? And he's like, fuck no. He'd be great entertainment on it.
Yeah, but I think he would have to find himself in serious financial problems, I think, before he would agree to go on that programme. Colleen Rooney was good on it. I didn't not really seen much of her, like on I've seen like images of her because she was in the paper a lot, like when we lived in the UK, but I never actually seen her being interviewed or anything. And she's actually seems really sound, and she's obviously like a bit of a hard nut as well, you know what I mean? She's like sort of unflappable, even when she was getting like guts and spiders and crickets and all sorts of shit dumped on her, you know? No, so yeah, no, I enjoyed it. As I said, I don't know if I'd watch it all the time. It'll depend who's in it, I think.
Well, Richard obviously missed his black pudding in the jungle, so he was able to pick one up. But yeah, thankfully it wasn't Semtex, so he was able to pass through with his black pudding, and yeah.
Yeah, way up the road, Bee's blood sausage, unmolested.
Yeah, I miss black pudding. I really do.
It doesn't give you heartburn.
No, it doesn't actually. Strangely enough, it doesn't.
You know, like,
yeah, I do miss.
Actually, you just reminded me. The whole time that I was at my mother's over Christmas, she didn't do a fry up once. Not once.
This is a complaint. This is an opportunity to feedback for him.
Normally, she would do one like when we're there, you know, some potato scones, some bacon, square sausage, blink sausage.
But did you have bacon and sausage, or did nothing?
No. Well, I went out because we were staying in Glasgow city centre in an Airbnb. So in the mornings, I went forth and found somewhere where I could get like a few filled rolls for breakfast, rather than having, because we're only staying there a couple of nights, nobody going shopping, and cooking and all that, you know. So, but no, I never got a. Did I? Oh, the only time that I got a fry up when I was there was at the Hilton on the way back, because we stayed at the Hilton in Glasgow on the way back, and they do a good breakfast at that Hilton, a good breakfast buffet. So I go, but my mum would normally do as a fry up when we were there. She fucking didn't do it once.
That's shocking, Greg. Shocking.
Absolutely.
But mind you, how many? There was like about 12 of you though. So
everybody has to eat, Nicky. You know what I mean?
I think I would draw the line at that. I'd be like, fuck that. You can sort yourselves out. Fucking cooking a fry up for 12 people.
I suppose it didn't help that people got up in stages. You know what I mean? It wasn't everybody was up at the same time. You know what I mean? It was like a sort of staggered wake up.
Yeah, because there's a few young children, like very young children, and teenagers and adults, and especially I know about you. You're very similar to me in terms of time difference. You're awake
I'm up early,
up early anyway, but then especially if you're back in the UK with the time difference, you're getting up at like fucking 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So
the first few days were there. I mean, I managed to sleep in a little later after a few days, but we're still talking like 6. It's not that much later, you know.
Oh well, there's a little bit of feedback for Greg's mum. Do a fry up next time, please, love. Not that you listen to this podcast. At least I fucking hope you don't.
Yeah, I hope she doesn't.
Okay, have you seen anything else this week, Greg?
No, that's all. That's all for this first episode of 2025 that I have.
Wonderful. Right, well, before we go into what we're going to be talking about today, let's have a little word from our sponsors. And our sponsor is Doric Skateboards, a skateboard brand created by Gary Kemp, whose main focus is to explore the people and culture of Aberdeen and the northeast of Scotland, creating designs to reflect life in that wonderful area that I hail from. Doric Skateboards screen print their own decks in their new studio by Gary's fair hand, and they have produced some amazing designs over the years, including an Annie Lennox-inspired board, a Robert the Bruce deck, and a Plenty of Pop deck inspired by the old Bonaccord trucks that used to drive around Aberdeen delivering fizzy juice. Doric Skateboards also replicate these amazing designs onto their clothing on 100% organic cotton tees, hoodies and sweatshirts, and they also produce beanies, caps, mugs, pin badges and stickers. Gary regularly collaborates with local artists to ensure he brings the latest designs to the market, but always with a Doric twist, including the latest butt redesign based on the famous Aberdeen Breakfast of Champions and the beautiful Northfield Tower design, a love letter to the Eiffel Tower of Aberdeen. So check Doric Skateboards out for yourself at doricskateboards.com and follow them on Instagram at Doric Skateboards to see the amazing designs on offer. And we are delighted to be able to offer you 15% off as listeners to this podcast. All you need to do is head to doricskateboards.com, have a look at all the amazing decks, stickers, badges, hoodies and tees on offer, and enter the promo code SWALLY. That's SWALLY, same with its name as this podcast, all in block capitals, and get your 15% off. That's doricskateboards.com, link in the description of this episode.
So, the first choice of the new year was yours, Nicky. So why don't you introduce this week's subject.
Thank you very much, Gregg. So I thought I would take advantage of us having a little bit of a break and we could cover something that was a little bit longer because I know sometimes, time can be an issue for us. So we are covering a 6-part series of 1-hour episodes, so 6 hours in total. And before I'd go on to talk about this, if you haven't seen this, it is available on YouTube if you want to go and watch it. So I would highly recommend you watch it before we talk about it because we're going to spoil the shit out of this. We are, of course, talking about Taking Over the Asylum, which is a 6-part BBC Scotland television drama about a hospital radio station set in a Glasgow psychiatric hospital. The show was written by Donna Francis-Child, produced by Chris Parr and directed by David Blair. Originally broadcast in September 1994, the show follows a double glazing salesman, Eddie McKenna, played by the wonderful Ken Stott, who re-establishes a hospital radio station at St Jude's, a psychiatric hospital in Glasgow, with patients as its presenters and volunteers, notably Campbell, played by a very young, in I think his second role, David Tennant, and a supporting cast of the incredible Katy Murphy, the wonderful Angus Macfadyen, the man who is everywhere, Matt Costello, Gavin Mitchell, and the witch from Simon and the Witch, Elizabeth Spriggs. Gregg, we mentioned on the last episode, well, the last proper episode that we spoke about, when I mentioned this, you said you didn't think you'd ever seen this. I remember watching it when it went out in 94, but had very vague memories of it. So it was almost like watching it for the first time of me watching this. Was it the first time you'd seen this?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I might have seen snippets of it when it went out at the time. I feel like it was on a Sunday night, maybe, something like that.
Might have been, yeah, I think so. Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
And, I mean, No, it wasn't a Sunday night because I read when I was doing my research that the first episode was up against European football on BBC One. That shows how long ago it was on.
Yeah.
BBC One showing the football and Soldier on ITV.
So it must have been a Wednesday or a Thursday then, I think. If it was up against... I think Soldier was on... I want to say a Thursday, but maybe it was a Wednesday. So it must have been a Wednesday or a Thursday, definitely.
I don't know. My mum liked Soldier, so there was no way that I was wrestling control the TV away from her to watch this, unfortunately.
She liked Robson Jerome, but didn't like a fry-up.
Exactly. I did. I think that this might have been the year that I bought her the Robson and Jerome album for her Christmas. That I immediately regretted when it was swiftly put on during Christmas dinner and it was all we heard for the next fucking God knows how long.
So, do you still have flashbacks to hearing Up on the Roof?
Well, Robson and Jerome, I was like the brilliant Top of the Pops 2 that they show on BBC 4. It's not Top of the Pops 2, but on a Friday night they show like episodes of Top of the Pops from like different decades, and I watched
heavily edited, I presume.
Possibly, but I watched one. I think maybe it was a Christmas one, and Robson and Jerome, and they were posting it. Okay. And I think it was the same year. I think did they almost get Christmas #1 with Unchained Melody or something like that? Maybe, or it was
something like that. Yeah.
So there was no chance of the young Gregg. 16-year-old Gregg managing to get control of the TV to watch some wonderful Scottish drama when my mother was watching Soldier. So I think this was the first time for me. It's sort of like the events were I felt like I kind of knew the story for some reason. Like there was some surprising events in it, but I think sort of the broader story seemed quite familiar. But I really, really enjoyed it. I have to say it. It's one of the things I've enjoyed the most that we've done recently. Actually, I'm not saying that I've not enjoyed other things, but I think maybe to rephrase. I think it's one of my favourite things that we've covered on the Swally in the last wee while, I would say.
I've got written down in my notes, Gregg, it's probably one of the favourite things we've ever covered, so I'm on the same page as you. I just adored this.
Yeah, very, very good. And just a great opportunity to see a lot of Scottish actors that, we don't see all that often. Like John Mitchell, when he popped up in there, it was like, oh, brilliant. Jake Darcy makes a very brief appearance as well, And and I don't think we've watched. I think maybe the last thing we've covered with Ken Stott might have been The Debt Collector. Maybe, was that the last one? Well, I can't think.
Might well have been. I'd need to double check, but I think you're right. I think it might well have been. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, this is my first time revisiting this, and like I say, it was almost like watching it for the first time. And as soon as I settled down and started it, I'm like, oh God, I love this so much. This show's wonderful. I think it's hugely important, and it's genuinely one of my favorite things. Not just that we've covered recently. I think it's one of my favorite things we've ever covered. It has everything, like as you said, a stellar cast. It's so wonderful. You know how much we've spoken at length about how much we love Ken Stott, David Tennant, phenomenal, Angus Macfadyen. As you say, there's so much talent that just pops up. Exactly as you said, Jake Darcy. I was gutted that, like, in the second scene of basically the whole show, we have Ron Donaghy, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the only scene he's in.
And Ashley Jensen.
Yeah, with a young Ashley Jensen. Fantastic. When you watch something like this, and you are in absolute tears of laughter 1 minute and then tears of sadness the next, it's something that it really just kind of hits you. And I'm not ashamed to admit, I cried a couple of times watching this, especially episodes like 4, I think. In fact, episode 3, I was crying with tears of joy, and then episode 4 just fucking snatches it away from you. And I think it's a very, and I'll come on to this because I read quite a few interviews with the creator, and I think the subject matter is something that is very difficult, but in watching this, I think it's handled so carefully. And you genuinely care for all of the patients, like really care for them. And it's a fucking masterstroke you can do that, to be able to craft characters that you care so deeply about. And you're really hoping they get okay and they can come out the other side. And you identify with their struggle. Like, it's funny, you have a character like Rosalie who always has her bottle of Dettol with her. Yeah. And it's a funny thing. But fuck, when her last bottle of Dettol drops on the floor, you're genuine like, oh, fuck. And when Campbell's like, it's okay, Eddie will go and get you a new one. Fergus will show you the late night shop. And Fergus like, I've escaped 3 times already today. Like, you're like, is there a limit? Are you going to get into trouble for a 4th time? Just, you care so much, and just the chemistry between the actors is just, it's so phenomenal. I absolutely love this show, but some of the throwaway lines are just so funny, and some of the randomness and ridiculousness, and the way they focus. I mean, the first episode, a lot of it is focused on building things up and setting things up, but a lot of it is around the character of Nana. And the reveal... The reason she's called Nana is because she sings the EastEnders theme tune.
Yeah.
It just had me in bits.
Well, that's the thing, because like the writer is it's some of that humour, especially like that kind of joke. It feels very sort of really quite Scottish humour, but yet the writer, Donna Francis Child, is American. Well, but she was working, working and living in Scotland. But she does something quite interesting with it, because the first, the first episode feels like it's almost like a pilot, right, for the rest of the series. But the first 3 episodes have quite satisfying resolutions. You know what I mean? So she sort of lulls you into thinking, well, it's going to be, there'll be like a narrative that weaves its way through the whole 6 episodes, but each episode is going to focus on a particular patient, and it's going to be sort of contained. And then with episode 4, one of the main characters commits suicide at the end. And then without getting too far ahead of ourselves, the last episode, there's a little bit of resolution for like one character, really. His sort of circle's closed, but the rest of the characters, you're sort of left thinking, well, I'd quite like to know what happens to Eddie and Francine and Rosalie, because we don't get to find out. Rosalie has like some kind of resolution in the sense that she's in this sheltered accommodation, but that feels like the beginning of another story arc, because with the neighbourhood's community people being against the facility that she's in and her being ostracised. That felt like the beginning of a new story arc. But for Eddie, is, everything has gone wrong for him by the time the credits roll in the last episode. You know what I mean? Everything.
Well, It has and it hasn't. I have a different kind of opinion on that, maybe, but we'll maybe come to that when we talk about the end. But I agree, a lot has gone to shit, but then there's a couple of things that I think come to things are going to be okay for Eddie at the end, especially his last two lines of the series.
Yeah.
Lead for me to think that, you know what? He's admitted that he has a problem, and last time we can get better. It'll just take us time. But we'll come on to talk about the ending and what we think is going to be happening to the characters. So Eddie obviously is a double glazing salesman. He has a gig at a hospital radio, which volunteer work, and gets sacked by Ron Donaghy. Because Ashley Jensen, who lovely words from Ken Stott about patients don't want to listen to rap music, thing, recommends he goes to St Jude's, which he obviously doesn't realise what it is, because it's not until he says to them, "I've been promoted, I'm going to be station manager at St Jude's." And like, it's a loony bin.
Yeah.
And he turns up, and you're kind of thinking, "Oh my God, what is going to happen here?" Especially when you meet Campbell for the first time, David Tennant, showing him around, and he doesn't realise he's a patient.
Yeah, for sure. The building. I was thinking to myself, watching that first episode, like, I know that building, and when I had to pause it because it was annoying me and do a quick Google, and it's Gartlock Hospital, which is near Gartcosh, which is near where I used to live when I lived in Steps in Glasgow. And I think all that's left of the hospital is maybe like the tower, and there's a new housing estate built around it. But when I used to drive past, because it's out in the countryside to some extent, well, to a greater extent, it's kind of not too far from Easterhouse. When you drive past it at night or during the day, it's because it was all abandoned. It's fucking creepy as fuck. Like,
yeah, really, I can imagine.
Really creepy. So to see it sort of, because then when I was doing my research, the hospital had closed before they filmed. So the hospital had been closed for a year or two before they filmed in it. But obviously, through the magic of film and television production, it feels kind of populated, and it does feel. It has a look of an institution, because it is, but it feels like a bit more human because we see people living in the rooms and all that kind of thing. But I remember when they were building the houses around it, I can't remember who the developer was, but they had like their big sign up. I was driving past it with my wife, and I was like, who the fuck is going to buy a house there next to that creepy building in the middle of nowhere? But I guess there's somewhere for everybody.
I wouldn't mind that, actually. I'd be quite into that.
Yeah, you would, because you don't like people. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But no, one of the things that I liked about this, because obviously it's 31 years old, this programme now. Over the last few years, mental health has been a huge point of discussion online and elsewhere. But back then, I don't really remember it being something that one spoke about, so like David Tennant's character Campbell, he's in there because he's manic depressive. That condition's been changed now. It's called bipolar. And, Rosalie with her obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and they do have there is a little bit of fun that is had with their conditions, especially Rosalie's, but you never feel like they're being mocked.
No,
any of them. Even Gavin Mitchell's character, although he is quite a minor character in it, he's probably the most sort of eccentric, like visibly eccentric, with his spoons and the way he's dressed and his big thick NHS specs on and stuff. But again, you never feel like they're taking the piss out of him, you know what I mean? No. Or out of somebody with those challenges. And it was quite refreshing, because I'm pretty sure there's been comedy and drama since this came out that is probably less sympathetic in how it portrays those types of disorders and conditions.
100%. Yeah, no, completely. And I think you're right. They do treat it very carefully. Fergus is schizophrenic. And I hadn't thought about that until now. You're kind of like, oh, they've ticked all the boxes there in terms of, right, you have a manic depressant, someone with OCD, schizophrenic, like they're covering everything in the core group kind of thing. And Francine, who obviously is kind of depression after abuse and has manic episodes as well. And I think it's, for this to come out in 1994 is very remarkable. You're right. This wasn't it was a stigma back then. And nowadays it's no longer acceptable to like portray people with mental health problems as dangerous or poke fun at them and things like that. Like even, in EastEnders now you'll have someone with bipolar or with Alzheimer's or OCD and it hardly raises an eyebrow because it's kind of a thing that nowadays is accepted and it is part of life. But for this in 1994, it was very different. And that's what I'd read in terms of it did get an airing on, I think it was BBC Two it aired originally. And it was meant to have an airing on BBC One and it never actually got that. It got replayed again on BBC Two late at night. And it was because Alan Yentob said, who was controller of BBC One at the time, said he couldn't put a show out that had the word asylum in the title.
Right.
Because it had a bad connotation.
It's got an old-fashioned term.
Yeah. And I guess he didn't want to have anything that had a negative connotation to the station because asylum would be a negative term to have there. And is that an excuse because he just didn't want to put a show on about people with mental health issues? Possibly.
Well,
but
I imagine if it was going to go on BBC One, then it might have been like a national broadcast of it, like so for England as well. Maybe that was why. And I suspect it's more because the thing is, I'm sure the first time I saw the movie Asylum, I watched it on BBC Two one night. You know what I mean? And that, so you're going to say, I'm never going to screen that film because it's got the word, even though it's I guess it's a 50-year-old film by now, if not older. It's got the word asylum in it. I suspect it's probably just more him thinking, well, I don't think nobody in England's going to want to watch a sort of drama about a psychiatric hospital and a hospital radio station,
Yeah, a bunch of Scottish loonies, effectively.
Yeah. Oh yeah, potentially. But the thing is, one of the other reasons why this kind of resonated a bit more with me than other things that we've done is because when I was a little boy, my mum and dad both worked at Lennox Castle Hospital in Lennoxtown outside Glasgow, and that was a psychiatric hospital. It's now like where the hospital was is now where Celtic have their training ground. Make of that what you will, but it's close to Glasgow. But my mum was a nurse there, and my dad was the switchboard operator. So it was back in the old days when he would answer the phone, it would come in, and I remember going into his office, he had like a big desk with different wires that he would, so to put a call through back then, it wasn't a case of just sort of pressing a number on the keypad or whatever. He would have to sort of take and plug it into the switchboard and all that kind of thing. And I know we used to live in the hospital houses, which were just outside of the hospital campus. It was called the Oval, and everyone who lived there worked or had something to do with the castle. And some of the patients were allowed to go out and walk up to the village and buy fags and a paper or whatever, and they could walk, and they would sometimes walk round because the housing development was called the Oval because it was like a sort of island of houses in the shape of, wait for it, an oval. So they would walk round. And when I was little, I used to be really quite scared of them because sometimes they would be a bit unpredictable. They would never, ever was I ever threatened or at risk. But when you're a little kid and there's an old lady walking by talking to herself and just sort of shouting weird and wonderful things, it was a bit frightening. But the reason that when this was broadcast, the castle was closing. And what they did with a lot of the patients, because it was like a huge, big, sprawling campus, there was the hospital wards where the patients who were a danger to themselves or potentially to other people would be kept in the wards, a little bit like St Jude's on the programme. And then there were sort of kind of bungalows and stuff around the campus as well, where the patients who weren't deemed to be a risk to themselves or others lived. And what happened was a lot of them were put into care in the community. projects, and these facilities were all closed down. And I suppose the patients who would have been the most sort of high risk were put into some other kind of facility, and the ones who weren't were just sort of found places to live in the community. But what my dad used to tell me was there was a lot of people who had been in the castle for like their whole adult lives, because when they were kids, they might have been like hyperactive as we understand it to be now. Back then, in the sort of 50s or 60s, they were just considered, to use the parlance of the programme, considered to be loonies. And they were just put into the castle, and sometimes they were just forgotten about. And they would live their whole lives in that institution. And when they started with like kind of finding places in the community for them to live, they were like 40, 50, 60 years old and had always been taken care of. You know what I mean? And really there was nothing. I suppose it's easy for us to say now in 2025 and how we understand these things. But back then, it's a bit of a shame, really. It was a real tragedy, though. Like, some of these people didn't really need to be in there and could have been treated and just like whole lives like lost, really, like living in a place like St Jude.
They touch upon that in the show in terms of when they're speaking about Nana and Isabel, played by Angela Bruce, who is effectively the kind of person in charge of the ward at St Jude's. They're speaking about Nana, and if she doesn't get picked up, they're going to send her off to the other ward. And they allude that, well, once you go there, you never come back. That's it. You're fucked. That'll mangle your head completely. So they touch upon that there, and terrible tragedy that used to happen, and it was, and because I guess is it a case they didn't know how to handle and cope with people with mental issues at the time, or it was a case of their loonies, just shove them away and ignore it, and something will
I think it's
resolve itself.
Probably a little bit of both in there. You know, there would be like sort of a fundamental lack of understanding of what some of these people's conditions were and how the best way to take care of them. But also just a bit of a out of sight, out of mind mentality as well. You know what I mean? I think, as the NHS in the UK has gotten older and become increasingly harder to give the funding that it needs to operate. Again, they touch on it in the programme. It's a case of, when the character says, we could spend the money on machines that are going to save lives and detect cancers and all that kind of thing, or we can spend the money on a radio station for a bunch of loonies. When he's talking about how funds are allocated. And, I'd imagine, like, Gartlock Hospital, where this is filmed, I know the castle as well, and Lennoxtown, some of the other places around Scotland. What was the one in Aberdeen? Cornhill was one in Aberdeen, wasn't
Cornhill.
it?
Yeah, Cornhill.
I mean, they would cost a lot of money to staff and make sure that the patients had everything they needed, from medicine to, just the kind of basics. And all that, and it's like they're always going to be looking for ways to do that kind of thing cheaper. And I think, unfortunately, people with these types of challenges probably aren't as high up the priority list as other illnesses.
Yeah, which is a crying shame and a terrible shame. Which is highlighted, I think, really well in the show too. To come back to the show and the cast, we have Ken Stott as Eddie McKenna. I've just checked. We fucked up again, Gregg.
Did we?
He's Bob Toole in Crime.
Oh,
how did we forget that?
Yes,
how did we forget that? He's fucking Bob Toole in Crime. Ken Stott being Ken Stott, really, in this. He just plays Ken Stott, and I love him for it, because he's a treasure, isn't he? Ken Stott.
There's a Stott performance that I'm going to pick this year for the Swally, and it's a very, 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 very early Taggart story that he's in.
Excellent.
I'm going to pick it where he's not really playing Ken Stott, but he's unusual, Ken Stott, because he's a fantastic actor. He's got a very, very non-actor face. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's, he does just look like probably half a dozen people that you might see in the street anywhere you go in the world, but I always think with him, he always seems to have a real fundamental understanding of what the character is, and Eddie's character is a very unusual character in the sense that he is part Lithuanian, because his grandparents I don't think it's ever established whether it's on his mother or father's side, but his grandparents fled Lithuania during the war and came to Glasgow. Can't imagine what they thought when they got there, but anyway. And, his dream is to be a professional radio DJ, and he's doing jobs that he's not really invested in. The latest one being a double glazing salesman. And the funny thing is, like, for Eddie in the first few episodes, and kind of coming back to what I said before about that sort of sense of a little bit of closure at the end of the first 3 episodes, is that Eddie seems like on a bit of a path to fucking everything up himself, and yet people come into his life and sort things out for him. Like the way Campbell and Rosalie organise the recording studio at the hospital, the Nana of Royal Family sorts him out with a big job doing all the windows at her house and all that kind of thing. Things just, while he's kind of blundering through, there seems to be people ready to sort him out. And I think the way Ken Stott plays him is, he doesn't play him as a sort of somebody who inadvertently makes the wrong decisions or takes the wrong choice and stuff. He's somebody who's sort of got the courage of his convictions, but he just doesn't get it right all the time,
And that's it. It's not like he's been, or he alludes to that he's been through any trauma in his life or anything. As Nana says to him, you're 38, you've never been married. So it's not like he's been through a divorce. That would be the easy route for a character like this. He's divorced, he's fallen on his luck. He's just been kind of stumbling through life in a way, and sounds like he's only had the double glazing job for a couple of months. So what the hell was he doing before then? But his dream has always been to be a radio DJ. He mentions on a couple of occasions an ex-girlfriend, is it Angela, that he... yes, because of course Nana could never pronounce Angela without saying Angel Delight, or he's kind of tried to stumble through this, but it's not like he's been through anything bad that has happened. It's just almost like he's just a bit of a loser in a way, or a waster that has never fulfilled his potential. And he even puts himself down. And I do this as well, Greg. I will admit to this when people ask about the podcast, and I've had a few people I've spoken to about this that have listened, and they've said, oh, it's fucking great. And I'm like, it's just a hobby. And that's what Eddie is like. It's just a hobby in terms of his radio. But he's beaten himself down on it because he wanted it to be his dream. He sent tapes into Radio Scotland and Radio Clyde, and he's tried, but he's just been rejected so many times that he's given up, effectively.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And the irony of, in this, Eddie is putting his hobby first a lot of the time before his job. And as I was sitting in my office on Tuesday watching a couple of episodes of Taking Over the Asylum on the company time and making notes, I thought, maybe I've got a little bit in common with Eddie.
Maybe have edited a few episodes on company time, Greg. I'm not going to deny that. It's clear. Why don't I put the link tree of this in my personal social media, because I'm worried I'll get caught of doing something. But yeah, you're right. It is the case. But he has a passion about it. And of course, he's not getting paid for the hospital gig. He's not getting paid for the psychiatric gig. Yeah. He's losing money constantly because he gives money to Nana, of course. He goes and buys help for Francine out of his own pocket. He's all the petrol money, for example. He is losing money for this, but it's his passion and it's his hobby, and you can tell how much he loves doing it, just as much as I love just sitting down and talking to you every couple of weeks, talking about stuff.
The one part of Eddie's character that I would have liked to have seen a wee bit more of is that, it's kind of indicated to us that he's got a bit of an encyclopedic knowledge of music, particularly music from the kind of 50s, 60s and 70s. And we have that nice moment when he and Campbell are recording the stand-in show on Radio Scotland and Eddie's Dr. Boogie, and they have to, and the listeners are challenged to write in and phone in and see if they can catch him out with like a bit of knowledge or something. And we know that he's got this amazing collection of old 45s and that he's been collecting over the years and stuff. And maybe that's why when I come back to what I said earlier on, I wonder if there was ever a suggestion that there might have been another series of this just to sort of, to kind of follow up a few of those sort of developments and plot threads and things that are established in the first series. And it'd be good to see what Eddie did next, and if he was able to do something with his passion.
As much as he is like a bit of a downtrodden character and a bit downbeaten, that you can see in a way, shabby suit, shitty car, lives with his grandmother. Although, as he says, it's my flat and unlucky in love or whatever, but he does have a backbone. Like, he stands up to the guys at work. Like McAteer, he does take it for a little bit, but then he does push back.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of scenes, there's one in the wine bar where they're having the sales event. He does kind of stand up to them and gives them a bit of taste of their own medicine. And then, of course, when he punches McAteer, and then when they lock him in the toilet and he escapes and manages to make the meeting, it is like a fuck you. Yeah. And he does have a bit of a backbone in terms of doing this stuff, but he just doesn't show it that much. And I do find his relationship with Francine very interesting, because he's very taken with her, obviously.
Yeah.
From the initial time he sees her being carted out the wing barefoot, and you must have liked that because she's barefoot quite a lot, is Katy Murphy. But she gets carted out the wing having a manic episode, and he's instantly kind of like intrigued. And the relationship they have is very odd, but very beautiful, the way it develops over the course of the 6 episodes. And you're kind of there for it. You want both of them to be happy. And I think, as it's mentioned later on in terms of when she says, I've got scars all over my body, and he says, we've all got scars. But we don't know what his scars are, really. In terms of what he's been through, because it's never really gone into that much. Okay, he's been rejected a few times. He hasn't found the job that he loves. He hasn't had a bad life by the sounds of things. You never hear about him having been abused or having had depression or having been through mental health issues. He seems to just have been, he's his own worst enemy. In a way, really. Well, actually, no, something, I take that back, because he admits at the end, the second last line is, Francine, I'm an alcoholic. So he is an alcoholic. So he does have issues. So I'm sorry, I take back what I just said about that. He does have a huge issue and a disease. And I guess, that's his thing. Fuck. And I'm really sorry for not alluding to that earlier.
Is that him thinking, is that him sort of realising?
Yeah.
So all his experiences with St Jude's and Francine and everything has brought him to the realisation that he also has a problem that needs to be treated.
And an alcoholic will never admit, they don't realise they've got a problem until they admit they have a problem. So you're right, that's beautifully done. But the second last line, effectively, him admitting that he is also ill.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, they don't sort of push the alcoholic thing. They don't sort of tease it out too much. Like, he does have a bottle of whiskey with him most of the time, but you don't. The only time you see him the worse for wear is in the last episode when Campbell comes round to his place and his grandma's gone away to Lithuania on the bus, and he's obviously been on a tear the night before.
But then is that the worst thing though, Greg? Because he's a functioning alcoholic, because he's always got a half bottle on him. He's always drinking. And Francine does point out to him in terms of, you drink a lot. And he's like, yeah, I know. And we allude to, he tells a story about when the first time he got pissed was when he was 15 and he had to go up and say a poem. And you get the impression he's drank every time since then before he's had something to do, because he needs it. And he says, and there's the whole thing, but when him and Campbell are about to do the show, he's about to have a drink and he doesn't. And he's, I'm not ready. Francine kisses him. And it's almost like that's the drug he needs, rather than the booze, to get through that show. And wonderful.
Natural encouragement.
I think he does have a massive issue, and I do think it is alluded to a lot throughout the show.
Yeah, actually, I think you're right. I mean, maybe to go back and watch it again, be kind of looking for it a bit more. I think you're right.
You are pissed, my friend.
That's right, coming for you.
Aye. I'm no an amateur.
But he's also a bit of for being a shambles of a salesman, and obviously Francine likes him and is attracted to him. Okay, you could say she's a loony, but Caroline Patterson, who plays the receptionist at the window place, most famously Ruth from EastEnders,
Ruth Fowler,
she likes him. There's something there. She fancies him.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a kind of they're sort of like the only kind of normal people who work in the office. You know, like
the only people that aren't fucking arseholes is
I mean, there's the two young guys. The two sort of young salesmen who are always sort of hanging around Macadyer, who, you know, you kind of feel that it might not be too late for them. But you obviously Griffin, the boss Griffin, played by Roy Hanlon, is perhaps the most eccentric character in the whole fucking programme, ironically, you know. And then Macadyer himself, you know, is a sort of shark, cutthroat salesman and everything. And then when they have the sort of sales meetings when they're all shout, they have the American guy come in, don't they, to give them like a seminar on selling and everything. And then just come back to what you were saying about Eddie's problem with alcohol. You know, when he needs to get the money together, and there's a bit of a montage of him just doorstepping, and he's having some whiskey, and then he's got the extra strong mints out before he goes in to talk to them, and it's she's Caroline Patterson. This must be, is this post EastEnders? Or is it during? Is she gone from EastEnders by now?
She was in EastEnders from 94 to 99, so it must have been just pre, I think. Yeah. Just pre. This must have been filmed before she got the EastEnders role. Yeah,
because like, there's moments with Eddie where I'm like, you know, like are we supposed to be rooting for this guy at this stage? And then there's other times when you're like, you know, a really nice moment is when he is trying to sell windows to the single mum, and he sort of has a bit of a come to Jesus moment. He's like, look, if you got any putty in the house, I can fix your windows for you. They're just the glass just a bit loose, you know. So, you know, like, sort of fundamentally, he's a good soul.
But he is, because as we see in episode 4, he goes above and beyond to help Fergus.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Putting him down as a reference, giving him, and he's the one that comes up with the idea. It's, you know, they don't know how they're going to solve things. And of course, Rosalie is the one that comes up, we'll just put stuff in his CV. But Eddie's the one that's like, no, let's do this kind of properly, but make it look good, and I can do this. And he does it. And he really does go above and beyond. You can tell he's delighted when, you know, Fergus gets the interview, Fergus's job. Yeah. Even to skip ahead, when they offer him the slot on the radio, he turns it down because it's just him and not Campbell. Yeah. He's a good guy, but and his character does develop over the course of it, and you do get to see glimpses of what a good guy he is, I think.
And his kind of sense of virtue is not always rewarded, because he stands his guns for him and Campbell, and then what happens is they decide they want Campbell and they don't want him. You know what I mean? You know, so he's not been, for being like an honourable guy, he's not had the reward that you would expect.
And you have to wonder, he takes Francine to the Lithuania club night. Is that because he wants to go on the date with Francine? Probably 60%. But I would say 40% of that also as well, because he wants his grandmother to show off to her friends that her grandson has a girlfriend.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I can't imagine anybody else sort of doing, they can sort of play in the role, really. I think it needs to be it needs to be an actor like Ken Stott who could sort of go on that journey that Eddie goes on in this, I think. I can't think of any other Scottish actors that would be right for it.
Anyone else around that time, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, probably has too much swagger to be you need the downtrodden kind of, the person you believe is a fucking loser but has a good heart and can achieve things. Like, it's believable when he does things, and when he's charming the lovely, oh my God, Arabella Weir was so hot when she was young. When he's charming her and stuff, like, you believe it because he does have that kind of cadence, but you also believe he is a total fucking loser. And then when he gives his money, you know, he's got paid 30 quid for his job and he gives it all to Nana. You believe that. You're like, my God, what a good guy. He will go without to do that, but he's also a loser, but has this charm. And you're right, I can't think of anyone else, because everyone else of that era would have a certain bit too much bravado that you couldn't see Robert Carlyle or someone, pull this off, because you'd be like, he's going to charm the pants off everyone, and he'll have the breakfast slot on Radio Scotland within a week.
Well, yeah, I think Robert Carlyle is like, he's not sort of, I can't think of when he's played a character who just sort of accepts things. You know what I mean? Like, when he's, like, even in the full Monty,
that was exactly what I was going to go to.
he's sort of downtrodden in the full Monty, but he's also sort of optimistic as well. He's optimistic. He's optimistic about them doing this like Chippendales thing with all these middle-aged, out-of-shape guys and making some money and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Or he's playing a bit of a unhinged character himself. I couldn't see him doing it. And then I suppose you've got guys like Alex Norton and stuff, but again, I don't know. There's some energy that I can't put my finger on that Ken Stott has, where he just seems, this role could be written for him.
It's because he's believable, I think, is the whole thing. I think we'll probably save the best for last. So if we're going to talk about the other cast members, I guess we could move on to Katy Murphy as Francine.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a spoiler when I'm saying we'll save the best for last, because obviously there's a natural transition I should go into there. But Katy Murphy is Francine. Katy Murphy, oh my God, how has she not done? We covered this, it was our first episode of last year, we did Tutti Frutti.
Yeah.
And we raved about how good she is. Such a different role, because she was a sassy, sarcastic, argumentative little tyrant of a bitch in Tutti Frutti.
Yeah.
In this, she's playing a vulnerable, manic depressant who's been through abuse, and my God, she's just incredible in this as well. Like, there are scenes that just breaks your heart, and the switch of how she can be so fine one minute and speaking away, and then talking about McTavish the cat. It's not a woman, it's not a girl, and have this manic episode. She's just wonderful. And there's little bits when Eddie plays help for her, and she kind of comes out the ward and she just looks over and just gives him this little smile, just melts your heart.
Yeah, she's really, really good. She's, I think I read, maybe when we were doing the Tutti Frutti pod, that she kind of stepped back a bit from acting when her daughter was born, and kind of focused on raising her daughter. I was looking at her IMDb, and she's still, still kind of doing bits and bobs here and there all the way through, but nothing particularly high profile, like an episode of Doctors, stuff like that. But she's, what I like about the way she plays the character here is that she's a tragic character, but she doesn't let the tragedy define the character. You know what I mean? So when she's, when she decides that she wants to learn how to DJ, and she's doing her own show, and even when Eddie takes her out in town for the day and then takes her to the Lithuania club, she's got a bit of a twinkle in her eye. She's very at ease with the Eddie's grand's friend at the club. She's up dancing, and she's very, very at ease. But then when they get back to the hospital and she sees the kids trying to set fire to the outhouse where McTavish the cat and her kittens are, she completely 180s, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she reminds us why she's a patient at St Jude's. And it's a real, I would hope she's like particularly proud of this one, Katy Murphy, because it's a real side of her that we've not seen. Like in the Steamy, she's quite a comic character. In Tutti Frutti, she's a very, very funny character in Tutti Frutti as well. And she has her moments in this, which is quite funny too. But for the most part, it's a very, very sincere kind of portrayal of somebody with like serious psychological problems.
Yeah, and she has a couple of like really heartfelt moments when they're in the car with Eddie, and she's telling him, about her Uncle Frank, and she was abused. It's horrible. But she also has some very funny and very great moments, and you really want her to do well. And when she's doing her show, you're so happy for her. And she does get enthusiastic about the station as well and stuff. And, for someone who didn't want anything to do with it to begin with, she really does get into it. And you're kind of relieved. She obviously goes catatonic, towards in the last episode, but she comes through, and you kind of believe, again, the relationship with her and Eddie. There's something there that it's almost two kindred souls that have kind of found each other somehow, and it's lovely and wonderful.
Yeah, she's really, really good. Really good.
We also have Fergus, played by Angus Macfadyen, who quickly became one of my favourite characters.
Yeah.
Phenomenal performance. And it was, episode 3. I finished episode 3 and I thought to myself, that is an episode I'm going to sit down if I'm ever feeling depressed one day, because it's such a feel-good episode, and it's so lovely, and everything goes well. In episode 3. They have the fundraiser, everything goes well. Spike Milligan turns up, we'll come back to that. Rosalie shakes Campbell's hand at the end. You're just like, how can this episode get anywhere? John Morrison turns up in the episode. Yeah. Like, how can this get any better? And then episode 4 just fucking pulls the rug out from under your feet and it's a very Fergus-centric focus, and starts off great with him. So he's a patient that just escapes on a regular basis, but he always comes back. And episode 4 just starts up with him hang gliding. It's just a phenomenal opening to the episode. And he just wraps everything up, gets on the bus and waves and fucks off. And the casual ways, like, well, I took it back where I got it from. And they just accept that he does this. It had to come to some sort of sad ending. And unfortunately, episode 4 ends with Fergus committing suicide.
But I wasn't prepared for that.
No,
at all.
No,
because
me neither.
Because the sort of the tone of the end of the previous 3 episodes, but especially to your point, the 3rd episode, that you really feel like you're on a journey with these characters to a happy ending for everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then, to end episode 4 with Fergus committing suicide, it was really jarring, really, really jarring.
I genuinely thought he was going to have like a manic episode and get locked up, or, get an injection in his bum or something, but I didn't see that coming, and I was genuinely heart in mouth, heartbroken when that happened, because he's such a great character. I mean, my God, why doesn't, like I think the next Mission Impossible film's the last one. I mean, Tom Cruise should just have a donor card wherever he goes, because it can get into everything, can't it? Like,
I was glad when he got his haircut, Fergus. I wasn't enjoying that kind of Marty Pello late 80s, early 90s cut that he was rocking there. But
you weren't liking the mullet?
No, it wasn't quite a mullet, was it? It was mullet adjacent, I think. It was the full thing. Because I think, like, as an actor, I have to be honest, like, I wasn't historically not been a huge fan of Angus Macfadyen's, and I think it's because I never really liked the way that he played Robert the Bruce in Braveheart. I
agree. Yes, I agree with you.
And I know that's desperately unfair for me to kind of put his whole career down because I didn't like him in one film. But that was all. It was the only thing I'd really seen him in. I'd seen him in little bits and bobs, but that was the only thing I'd seen him in where he was a kind of a central character. I have to say, in this, he's very, very good, and as the sort of quiet spoken, he sounds as though he's supposed to come from like maybe the islands or something like that. Quite a soft spoken genius who manages to solve the problems with all the technical issues and stuff with the mixing desk and the recording, the radio station and everything. And then, the sort of journey that he goes on in the 4th episode, where you kind of feel like he's not really ready to leave the hospital until that episode. And then we come to understand that really all he wants to do is to get a job that he enjoys doing, and, sort of try and get his life back on track a bit. And the cynicism of the doctor that's treating him, it's sort of similar to the cynicism of the doctor who's treating Rosalie in her episode for her OCD. Like, they're not very sympathetic characters, the two. I can't remember the actor's name, but he plays Fergus, ironically, in The Crow Road, doesn't he? The doctor who's treating Rosalie.
Yes, he does, yeah.
So there's this kind of, the doctors are painted as being quite, well, that doctor especially, you feel like she's sabotaging Angus because she wants to study him, because as she says to him, schizophrenia is something we don't know a lot about, and we're looking for patients who struggle with it to volunteer for a research camp and that kind of thing, and he just wants to get on with his life, and so his last act is screwing the mixing desk down onto the table after installing it all before he kills himself. And it's just like, fucking hell, you know what I mean? Like, where did that come from? I thought we were supposed to be like a nice little finish at each of these episodes.
Yeah, it was a big shock and horrifying for it to happen and for it to see. I did not expect that or see that coming at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, horrible. And I guess it needed it for a kind of a little dramatic point, really.
Yeah,
Everything's not rosy. It has to show that something, so one character does have to suffer or sacrifice to be able to hit the point home that mental health isn't all fun games, radio stations, and open days and watching Emmerdale and
Spike
stuff.
Milligan. Yeah. And the thing is as well, that sort of shocking moment really sets the tone for the last 2 episodes. And it sort of discombobulates you, because when you start in episode 4, episode 5 and episode 6, you're sort of like, well, this like all bets are off now. Yeah,
anything can happen.
Yeah, anything could happen here to these characters who we've become really fond of, and it's clearly not all going to work out for everybody.
Don't go. You don't look stupid. The war's not locked today. Nobody's a clear and present danger to themselves or others, I suppose. She's a cow, that Evelyn.
They'll let me out of here in 3 weeks.
What about your section?
Not renewing it.
The bastards, they always renew mine. Are you not looking forward to it? You'll be alright, If I had half your talent, I'd get myself the cushiest job going with a company car and end up that Richard eccentric instead of loony.
Maybe you will.
No me. I'm a hardcore unemployable. I don't mind, I'm very good at it, and everybody's got to have something. But you've got brains, Fergus. You've got an education.
Aye. And a big hole in my CV that says I've been working for the Blue Men from Venus for the past 2.5 years.
And although she's not Scottish, but Ruth McCabe as Rosalie.
She's brilliant.
What a wonderful character. Just fantastic. I love that character. I genuinely cried when she shakes Campbell's hand, and the last couple of episodes where she has her glow up, and she's not doing great in the assisted living, really, because people in that area don't like her, but she's doing her own, and she's a wonderful character, and I love the scenes with her and John Morrison. John Morrison playing a fucking arsehole as her husband.
Well,
but
he is, but the more that we come to understand about them, and, the last couple of scenes of them, you sort of realise, we obviously understand quite early on when we meet Rosalie the reason for her OCD is because of the trauma of her son passing away. He has either purposefully or inadvertently led her to believe that he's passed away because she didn't clean the fruit and veg properly, and he didn't, because he had leukemia. And I think he sort of softens a wee bit when when she sort of becomes more empowered in the later episodes, to your point, where she's had a makeover and she's sort of taken control of her life outside of St Jude's, as well as kind of pushing this radio station and trying to make things happen for Fergus and trying to keep Eddie focused and all, and deal with Campbell and stuff. I think of all the characters, her journey is the most satisfying, I think,
Yes, totally rooting for her when she's hiding in the cupboards. It's hilarious. Yeah. It's, again, she's the one that maybe it's because OCD is, and I really apologise for saying this if this comes out wrong, it's maybe the least bad of the illnesses that everyone is suffering from, so maybe it is easier to make jokes about it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
of her always having the Dettol and hiding in cupboards and stuff, but it's still not funny, but it is quite amusing. And
I mean, we all have things which kind of have to be a certain way. You know what I mean? I'm sure you living on your own, you like to have things in your place like a certain way, and I have a few things that I need to kind of be a certain way. Like I need to, if I always check that the door's locked before I go to bed, obviously, but I'd not always. It's kind of part of a bedtime routine. So if I get into bed and I can't really remember if I checked the door or not, and even though I know I did, I've still got to get up and go down the stairs and just check again. You know what I mean? Even though I know that because it's such a routine thing to do, I'm not even aware that I do it. You know, just checking the door. I have to say, like, living with those sort of things, like, sort of times by 1,000 sounds horrendous. You know what I mean?
God, yeah.
It's just horrendous. You know, like, you know, if you can't go to bed, if there's like a dirty glass in the sink and it's going to like, and all those types of things, it's, yeah, I'm not sure. But you're right. It does, like, I don't feel like they take the piss out of OCD.
No.
But I think they do have some fun with the more, perhaps the less painful symptoms of it.
We also have Elizabeth Spriggs as grandmother. I mentioned it in my intro. It's the witch from Simon and the Witch. Yeah. Great. She is the comedy relief of and pure 100% comedy relief in terms of, you know, you Scottish men always drink half and halves and talk about your penises. The line that I was in tears is when she's having the jumble sale and he's like, why are you getting rid of Grandad's hat stand? He has no need for hats. He's dead.
Jesus, what are you doing?
Don't take God's name in vain, they punish you.
But what are you doing?
Tomorrow I make jumble sale. I raise much money to go to Lithuania.
By selling Grandad's hat stand?
He has no need of hats. He's dead.
Why are you doing this?
Because I need £3,000 and you don't give.
It's the delivery of it that is the matter-of-fact way. Wonderful character. Just up dancing, cooking fucking stew at 3 o'clock in the morning and wonderful comic relief. When she goes mental at Eddie when he comes home because the TV license man's been round 3 times and she's been hiding. And she's like, you pay TV license. I need to watch Blind Date. Yes. Fantastic. She's such a wonderful, just light comic relief of just going into Eddie's home life and seeing that he's like, fuck, no wonder he spends all the time at the radio station.
Yeah, I know. And it's, you know, the funny thing is, it's his house. So, because like you kind of feel when we first meet Eddie, oh, he must be a bit of a loser. He's living in his grandmother's and she's looking after him and stuff. But yeah, she's looking after him to some extent. But she lives with him, you know. Yeah. It's never any. The question's never asked. Well, where are his parents? You know, we only know that his grandfather passed away some years before, and that's how she came to live with him. That's it.
Obviously, before we got onto the big one, supporting cast, Matt Costello. You know, when he turned up, it was like, it's Costello. Took me 2 scenes to know it was Gavin Mitchell. Oh, really? The first time I saw him, I didn't realise it was Gavin Mitchell, and then it wasn't until the next, and I was like, holy fuck, that's Gavin Mitchell. Like, Jesus. But yeah, him with the spoon, just a wonderful relationship. And I nearly had that down as my archetypal Scottish moment, is the scene where Costello takes his spoon away. Because I'm like, it's Stevie the bookie and Bobby the barman fighting over a spoon. This could be archetypal Scottish moment. But just a wonderful supporting cast, as you mentioned, you know, Ron Donaghy, Jake Darcy, Ashley Jensen.
This is the thing. It really made me think about, so like in the sort of 70s, 80s and 90s, what it must have been like for Scottish actors. Because if you think about it, right, Jake Darcy has a very, very, very central role in Gregory's Girl, right? Very important character. I think he's on screen more than any of the other teachers. And then, you know, when's Gregory? So 14 years later, and he gets like a 2 or 3 minute appearance on this as an electrician. Then you got Matt Costello. So he, you know, was the kind of joked about it before, but he was like a central character in like a classic episode of Taggart. You know, and this, like when he's young, I'd say very, very good. And yeah, I think he's in every single episode of this, but he's hardly got any lines.
No.
Most of the time he's sitting in front of the telly looking sort of disapprovingly at the other patients who are engaging with the radio station. It's not until a bit later on we see that he has done a bit of a U-turn and he's actually quite invested in the radio station as well.
Yeah.
So it's a good performance, but it must have been difficult because these are guys who have sort of tied their flag to acting as a career. And one minute you're a main character on a beloved, perhaps the most beloved Scottish film and one of the most beloved British films ever. And the next minute, you've got like a few minutes. But then you're you're like a main character in Still Game for both of them, as Steve the Bookie and Pete the JK. License to get pished. It must be. It must have been like quite a stressful existence.
Yeah, I can imagine it must be to be thinking where your next job's coming from, and then having to do bit parts, and you get the odd little scrap thrown at you, but whatever they do, they're fantastic in. And they still, even, I was about to say recently, The Field of Blood, but that was maybe about 10 years ago now. That came out, but they both had parts in that. But they still get stuff. Costello and, Mitchell do still pop up in stuff.
Well, yeah, Gavin Mitchell does. He was in Crime, wasn't he, in the last episode. And then Ron Donaghy, I know you never watched it, but he, I think like the first two series of the Game of Thrones, he was a very central character in that, after going through years of playing little bit parts here and there,
With, I guess, his old enemy that he was up against for this, Robson Jerome. I've mixed them two up. It's Robson Green and Jerome Flynn. Jerome Flynn was in Game of Thrones, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah, I know that much, but that much is all I kind of know. Right then,
so David Tennant
as Campbell Bain. I watched an interview with him. He still says that this was basically the role that catapulted him to fame. Without this, he wouldn't have achieved anything. I watched an interview with him last year, and someone asked him about this role, and he speaks about it so fondly. And they asked him, what Campbell would be up to now. Campbell Bain, oh my God, he just fucking steals the show, doesn't he?
Well, it's a great part because really he's the energy that keeps everything moving forward. You know what I mean? He's the enthusiasm, and he's the character who, at the end of it, he sort of gets what he said he was going to get. Because you've got Eddie who's trying to bring him back down to earth with, it's not that easy, and you've got to send a demo in, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And he's sort of uncompromising in his ambition, and it's really encouraging because at the very end he's a DJ in Radio Scotland. He's got exactly what he wanted, but he's not going to take it because he's doing what Eddie did, and Eddie's like, don't be mad. Got to take it. This might be your only chance, But just, he's great in this, and he's going to be, 22, 23 years old, maybe?
22.
And just absolutely going for it, holding his own with some very seasoned actors as well.
So you listened?
Aye, it was brilliant. Sort of like a Levi's, Wrigley's, Pepsi and Ann Brew advert all rolled into one. Young girl, get out of my mind. You never close your eyes. Fame! No.
Did anyone else listen?
Well, I don't think so. Unless you count Agnes, a nurse sat her next to one of the speakers. But see, she's catatonic, so it's difficult to know whether she was actually listening. You picked a bad time, though. Tuesday at 7 o'clock is Emmerdale. And the patients are very fond of Emmerdale.
So I should have started at 7:30?
They'd miss EastEnders.
8.
Hey, chance the bill. Television's not just a simple diversion here. It's more a way of life.
Been in a couple of episodes of Strathblair. And it just so happened the casting director that worked on Strathblair was working on this and recommended he come in.
Yeah.
And did an audition. I don't know if you saw the files I gave you, the audition. His original audition was there. His original audition is available on YouTube as well.
Right.
And it's very different to watch. Like it's very raw, but you can see why they did pick him. And wonderful performances. You're right, he kind of drives the show really with his manic energy. Whenever there's anything that's there, he picks it up. He just has this unbound enthusiasm. He's the one that, is immediately, I'm going to write 6 jingles, and he does. And all of a sudden, overnight, him and Rosalie have cleaned up the entire studio. He's written jingles. He's done all this stuff. He really wants to achieve it. He comes up with the ideas, and as ludicrous as some of them sound, about the open day and stuff, when he's like, we'll get Spike Milligan. When Spike Milligan appears on stage, I genuinely cried because I'm like, he's fucking done it. He's done it. Like, it's wonderful. And even, Eddie's like, you did it. And they're in the papers, and when him and Angus, is that the start of episode 3 episode 3 when him and Angus are doing the outside broadcast, like outside Buchanan galleries. It's fucking brilliant. The manicness when he's just, the police are coming, right, we'll grab this stuff, we'll just melt into the crowd and then we'll leg it. It's and when he has the acting, even with the relationship with his dad is heartbreaking at times. And it shows the range that Tennant, he doesn't just play this Duracell bunny the whole time. He does have other really heartbreaking scenes. And when you see the relationship with his dad, but then he has his manic episode to effectively get kept in for another 6 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And when you realise that he's been, was faking it, and there's a little glimmer there that Stuart was in on it as well.
Yeah.
At the end, and you're like, fuck, this is wonderful. I love it. His performance is just absolutely phenomenal in this.
The thing is, there's a moment when he's having his episode and he's changing the records and he keeps scratching them that, as somebody who grew up being taught to respect vinyl when you touch it very carefully, always have your little vinyl cloth nearby, make sure that the needle in your record player is sharp and all this kind of thing. That was like that moment when he's having these episodes and he keeps scratching the records when he changes them, and then the episode towards the end when the new electrician's in the recording studio and him and Eddie have the little tussle and the records get knocked down and Eddie steps on some of his records as he's getting pushed out. It was a bit like, it was like watching somebody you like getting kicked in the balls.
I did have to laugh because I think for the majority of the show, most of the time, one of them is sitting down or the other one's standing up, or they're kind of at different levels. It's not until like episode 5 or 6, they're both stood up face to face at one point. And I'm like, how different is their height? Oh my God. Like Ken Stott looks like tiny. So I had to look up. Ken Stott's 5'5" and Tennant is 6'1". Yeah. Right. So not a huge, a sizable difference. And it did look at that one scene. It looked massive, the difference in height of them, the way they were facing off. But yeah, Stott's only 5'5".
But then when he was Doctor Who, David Tennant, like all the regular characters that they put in with him, like John Barrowman and Billy Piper and that, they were all like, in Catherine Tate, all like a good bit shorter than him. So he does seem to tower over everybody, but if he's 6'1", he's about the same height as me.
Yeah. So it seems taller, but he's not actually that tall. So but you're right. He does get a wonderful ending, and that's where we spoke about at the beginning of the episode in terms of the ending. Like, and I think there is a bit of a sweet and a bitter kind of way that this ends. I mean, the sweet is, of course, that the Campbell does get his dream to become a DJ. Rosalie does get her life in order and is released. Francine snaps out of her catatonic coma and is last seen on the bench with Eddie. And they kind of become a bit of a couple, really, kind of thing. Yeah. The bitter is obviously that Eddie, fails in his dream to achieve, get the radio station. He loses his job. Fergus commits suicide. The radio station gets shut down. So there is a bitterness to the ending as well, but there are some sweet points to be there. And as I say, I do think genuinely the last kind of scene where Eddie admits to Francine, I'm an alcoholic. And she goes, yeah, I know. And, the last line of, we can get better. We can. It's just going to take time. Just is a beautiful last line to end a beautiful show. Yeah,
it's really good. And I would love to have seen a bit more of those guys. I'd love to have seen like maybe a little companion series or something just to see what happened next. Because by the end of the episode, you're really rooting for Eddie. You're really rooting for Eddie and Francine, and and I guess Rosalie and Jim, her husband, and all that. And then we never find out what happened to the sort of secondary characters either, like all the patients that weren't involved with the radio station and stuff. So yeah, really good. Really, really, really. It's sort of reminiscent of sort of classic like sort of Scottish drama, like the Plays for Today and stuff, where a lot of the time it is kind of left open, and it's just up to you have to just decide yourself how things happen, what happened to these guys, and did everything work out for them or not.
It was very widely acclaimed, despite what happened, like the subject matter and the BBC being maybe a bit nervous about it. And it did win. It won the 1995 BAFTA for Best Drama. And I think that's a huge thing as well. I read an interview with Frances Child, and she says that, the BBC still remain nervous, and it never got that BBC One repeat. And it was ignored for years. And then all of a sudden in the mid-2000s, somebody uploaded all the episodes to YouTube. Yeah. And she said that was one of the best things that could have ever happened. And for someone whose, work is now being illegally distributed, she's like, I'm delighted because people are able to see it. And that did lead to the BBC actually releasing it on DVD a few years later, because I guess they wanted to counteract that. Yeah.
And has that been, do you think maybe because obviously around about that time was when David Tennant got Doctor Who. He had just done Casanova, which was really, really successful. And then he signed up for Doctor Who. And I wonder if it was obviously one of the most popular actors to play Doctor Who. So popular that they brought him back for a couple of episodes as Doctor Who last Christmas. And I wonder if maybe that's what's led to people, let's find it and let's see what else he's been in, and and that's how it's ended up on there, maybe the Doctor Who effect.
I think it has been, because I have read a lot, doing some research for this episode and looking on Reddit and stuff. There's been a lot of, on the David Tennant Reddit or the Doctor Who Reddit, people being like, I've just watched this show called Takin Over the Asylum. This Scottish show from the mid-90s, and he's phenomenal in it, and it's one of his earliest roles. And I think that probably has brought a lot to it. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but obviously we have a listener who is a huge Peter Capaldi fan. And I wonder if she discovered Capaldi through Doctor Who, but then she discovered us through our episode on Soft Top, Hard Shoulder, which is quite an obscure Scottish film, really, to find. But obviously, was that discovered after Capaldi became Doctor Who? Probably. But I guess that does lead, and I'm the same. If I see an actor in something that I really enjoy or I really like, then I will go back and watch some of their back catalogue, and maybe more of a director to discover stuff that I've missed in the past and see their early work. So yeah, of course, I think it's very natural that people will have discovered this on the back of David being in Doctor Who, and hopefully brought it to a wonderful new audience. And I hope they enjoyed it. I hope we get some downloads off of it as well.
I want to talk about the music for a moment, because there is a lot of, would you say, classic pop music in it. There's a lot of Beatles music in it. Clearly not recorded by the Beatles, because that would be expensive. So it led me to have a look at who did the music, and the music was done by a musician called Junior Campbell, who used to be in the band Marmalade in the 1960s. Now, Marmalade previously were called the Gaylords, and then sensibly, don't laugh, perhaps sensibly changed their name to Marmalade in 1966. But he's a Scottish, Marmalade, probably the most famous, ironically, for their cover of the Beatles song Obla Dee, Obla Da. But yeah, I was looking him up, and he's quite a varied career, but mostly writes music for TV and film these days stuff. But the music was good. It's funny because there's some songs that are on the soundtrack which are obviously the original recordings, like some of the Motown stuff that's played on there, and some other stuff you can tell that and then a lot of it is I think there's a couple of Stone songs on it, a lot of Beatles songs which are all covers, and I think they're all covered by Junior Campbell and session musicians. Did you have a favourite song that they played on the show?
I think We've Got to Get Out of This Place. Probably. Yeah,
the Animals.
Just the way it was
teed up.
That was dedicated to the people of Perth, wasn't it? Yeah, I think that was probably my favourite. There was a lot of good tunes though. What about yourself? Do you have a favourite?
Well, I liked the version of Let It Be that they did, and they're not even trying to be a copy of the Beatles. It's a lady singing it. It's a different arrangement. It was really nice. I really, really like the Stevie Wonder song For Once in My Life. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a great song. Yeah.
Always just really liked it. But it was just cool because, I guess a lot of the music that they wanted to feature would be expensive because of the caliber of artists that recorded it originally. So just getting somebody like Junior Campbell to record the covers and things, especially he's got a little bit of Beatles in him anyway from his Marmalade days. It was good because like sometimes you can sometimes tell that productions are sort of settling for a particular song because that's what the budget would stretch to. You know what I mean? And it can sometimes feel a wee bit out of place, and you kind of think, I don't know if that's the song that they really wanted. But, you know, it's on a budget and whatnot. So I like the way they sort of circumnavigated that for this. So, is it time to put Taking Over the Asylum through our Swally Awards for the first time this year?
It is indeed, Gregg. Last fact, David Tennant did not attend the Scottish BAFTAs when this was nominated. Yeah, because Catherine Zeta-Jones got his ticket instead.
Yeah, because she was going out with Angus Macfadyen.
Yeah. He regrets that now, doesn't he?
She's going out with everybody hurt, isn't she?
No, Gregg. What? No. Angus Macfadyen, Michael Douglas. Can you name anyone else?
I'm sure she went out with Michael Sheen. I need to look it up now. Catherine. I'm sure she's had more boyfriends than just that.
Just because she's, well, I'm sure she has. We're not going to go into Catherine Zeta-Jones' dating history on this. This episode's run long enough. Let's do the awards.
Okay, right. So
we can talk about that afterwards.
The first award is the Bobby the Barman Award for Best Pub, and although the actor who plays Bobby the Barman features in in the show, we don't go to any pubs, unfortunately.
No, there's a couple of bars that are featured in terms of like sales meetings and stuff, but I went for the Lithuania Club.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, it was a good night out. Lots of vodka, if you like that kind of thing. Next award then, the James Cosmo Award for being a prolific Scottish actor and appearing in lots of things. I mean, there's tons. There's loads, so many. I couldn't choose between Darcy and Costello.
Yeah, I went with Costello. He doesn't have... Darcy's probably got more lines than Costello, despite the fact he's in it for... a minute, but I went with Costello because he's in every episode, and it's just lovely to see his lovely moaning crater face every time it lights up the screen. And he hasn't aged. He hasn't aged at all. He still looks the same now as he did back then.
Yep. Okay. Next one then, the Jake McQuillan Award the Jake McQuillan Your T-Zoot Award. I almost forgot the name of the award there. So
what did you go for this?
I went with the sort of Black Sabbath fan nurse punching Eddie and busting his nose.
Yeah, Stuart punching... he headbutts him, doesn't he?
He headbutts him, sorry. Yeah,
I went with Eddie punching McAteer, the guy from work, because that felt more of a teaser because he deserved it. Eddie didn't deserve to be headbutted, although Stuart was like, I've been fucking dying to do that for ages. I didn't think Eddie deserved it, but... yeah, McAteer deserved it, even though it was a weak punch by Eddie, but still.
Yeah. Okay, next then is the Ewan McGregor Award for gratuitous nudity. Apart from David Tennant's arse when he's getting his injection, there's not really any nudity in it.
David Tennant's bare arse is what I've got written in my notes, Greg. So yes, we'll go with that.
Next one then, the Francis Begbie Award for gratuitous swearing. I wouldn't say there's a lot of gratuitous swearing. The one I went for was when Campbell's having the argument with his dad, and he alludes to what his dad's dreams were, and his dad says, "Oh, a lot of fucking good that did me." You know? Yeah. But what did you have?
Yeah, similar. I had that one. I did like and it's not gratuitous as well, but because I know we often say on this it has to be really an F or a C, but it's when Fergus is telling Francine about his sectioning not being renewed, and she says, "The bastards, they always renew mine." I just like that. Just thought that was funny.
Yeah. And then lastly second to lastly, the archetypal Scottish moment.
Well, I mentioned it earlier. I went with Eddie always having a half bottle on his person.
Yeah. Instead of a hip flask.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I mean, normally I would try and go for something kind of funny, but for me, I had to go for the hospital building because there's something about that style of architecture. I think it's maybe a little more typical of West Coast or Central Belt sort of architecture, maybe even Glasgow. But there's just something about the tower and the sort of colour of the brick and stuff that really felt very Scottish to me.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that. Yeah, no, I'd go with that. Definitely, yeah.
And then the last award then, the Sean Connery Award. Who wins the production for you? I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Ken Stott's great, Katy Murphy's great, Angus Macfadyen's great. It's David Tennant wins it for me, without a doubt. It's not his show, it's Ken Stott's show, but David Tennant, for me, is the standout performer in this. What about you?
I would have to give it to Tennant just because of what it began for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you think of now, I mean, he's gone from, you know, appearing in Scottish, sort of atypically Scottish stuff, like short-lived stuff as well, like that Strathblair and everything, to Doctor Who, to, you know, like a internationally known Shakespeare, all sorts. I would have to give it to David Tennant because this really feels like well, he said it himself, didn't he? But it really feels like it's been the launch pad for a really successful career.
Yeah, and he still comes back and does stuff like Des, for example. I know that was a few years ago, but I think he still comes back and then, you know, voices Scrooge McDuck. Now,
Exactly.
He never forgets kind of his Scottish roots. He's almost like a young Brian Cox in a way, like he does.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, actually. Yeah, he does. He is a little bit like Brian Cox in that regard.
He hasn't forgotten where he's come from. And I think he appreciates where he came from and will always come back, if that makes sense. And it says a lot, actually, that, you know, his best friend is Michael Sheen.
Yeah.
Who is never forgotten his Welsh roots either.
No,
and always goes back to Welsh. I think they're very good comparison and double act in a way, that they're both proudly known and recognise their heritage and will always come back and do that, but they're not against going off and doing like a big Hollywood film or something.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, David Tennant, he has the kind of physical advantage of, as he's gotten older, he's sort of become quite distinguished looking. You know what I mean? Like when you see pictures of him now, I mean he's 53, I think, something like that, 54, and he looks, you know, he sort of aged really well, you know, whereas I don't think that's necessarily the case for everybody, you know, like some people look great when they're young, and then as they get older, it sort of goes a bit wrong for them, you know, like me.
Yeah. Not at all, Greg, not at all. You're still a very handsome man.
I think I look better now than I looked when I was young, to be honest. But anyway. Anyway, I just want to very quickly mention, so Catherine Zeta-Jones pre-Michael Douglas.
Oh, Jesus.
Hucknall, Leslie.
Grantham.
John. Pre-disgrace.
That's worse.
David Essex, of all people.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so she obviously likes the older gentleman, because David Essex would be a good...
I forgot she went out with John Leslie, but that's right. They were together for quite a while.
Yeah, before he well and truly fucked it. And when I say fucked it, I mean his career. I don't mean anything else.
Is that it? Essex, Leslie, and Hucknall?
That's all that's on... That's all that's on her Wikipedia. That's just the high profile ones.
I think you should take back your claim that she'd been out with everybody then.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I felt like she was always on the arm of somebody new back in the darling buds of May day when she was starting to become famous. But anyway, good luck to her. I like Catherine Zeta-Jones for what it's worth. I think she seems like a nice lady.
Do you think Sean ever had a crack at her?
Sean
Connery on Entrapment.
Nah, I don't think so. No, I think she would have had a crack at him though. But I think he was loved up by then.
Right. Okay. So that was our first episode of 2025. Do you think he wore his trousers when he was in the car with her? Let's see. That was our first episode of 2025.
He probably had to.
And that was my choice, Greg. So it is your choice for what we're going to be talking about on the next episode of the Culture Swally. Why don't you tell me what I'm going to be watching next week?
That's not the gear stick, Miss Jones. So I've gone for something, and I'll tell you why. Because obviously we did tune the fat for our New Year's special. And I thought, well, we were talking about how we've not really done a still game apart from the very first stage show and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, I don't really want to choose still game yet. So I'm going to choose something that is Chewing the Fat adjacent. And I've gone for a short-lived sitcom written by Ford Kiernan, Paul Riley, Mark Cox, starring Ford Kiernan and Paul Riley, and I've gone for Dear Green Place, Series 1. A hilarious, according to IMDb, a hilarious snapshot of park life in Glasgow, a whirlwind half hour that sees us taking everything from a bone idle Shire horse to unrequited love. So that sounds like fun. I remember watching a couple of episodes of it when it was on a TV, and if you want to watch it before you listen to the podcast, all the episodes were on YouTube, so it's a nice easy one.
I remember watching that when it very first came out, and I have not seen it since. There's 2 series, isn't there?
There's 2 series.
The first series.
Apparently it was cancelled due to obviously viewers dropping, but also because Ford Kiernan had a new sitcom commission called Happy Holidays, in which he stars with Gavin Mitchell, which was cancelled after 1 series. But we'll talk more about that on the next episode of the Culture Swally.
Wonderful. I'll look forward to that. And Greg, okay, Dear Green Place on the next episode of The Swally. Fantastic. Right, thank you very much for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can get in touch with us. You can email us on cultureswally@gmail.com. Just drop us a line, say hello. If you've seen any news stories you'd like us to cover, or if there's anything you'd like us to cover on the podcast, then get in touch. You can follow us on the socials. We're on Insta @Culture Swally Pod, and we are on X, formerly known as Twitter, but we never post there, @SwallyPod. And we have a wonderful website as well, don't we, Greg?
We do. It's a website that needs a little bit of TLC, but you can find us at cultureswally.com for links to all our episodes and some features on Scottish news. There's any features on Scottish news, but some features on Scottish pop culture. So come and give us some visits.
Fantastic. Right, well, thank you very much, Greg. Are you going to go off and see who other Welsh celebrities have been dating? I mean, Kate Beckinsale. She's English, but she went out with Michael Sheen, so yeah.
Well, they got her dating history. Got a daughter together, haven't they?
They certainly do.
Beckinsale and Sheen and Beckinsale. Yeah. No.
Anyone else you're going to look into our dating history, or no, you're done with that for the day?
I think I'm done with that for the day. I'm doing a 10k run tomorrow, so I'm going to have a chilled evening. I've got some nice food in to cook for me and my daughters. My wife's away overnight, so I've got some. My daughters now have a nice dinner, relaxing evening, go to bed early, and then get my run out the way tomorrow. So that's my plan for this evening.
Go to bed early, get the VPN on, and get ready for your run tomorrow. Yeah, I know your game. Okay, well, you enjoy yourself, buddy, and until next time.
Until next time.
I'm an alcoholic, Francie.
I know.
We can get better. We can. All it's going to take is time.